Williams in motion, play action for Daniels. Backside pressure. Down he goes, back at the 39. The Bears got there.
Welcome to Sikkim 365 Radio.
Looking for the equalizer. He wants it all on one play, and he's got it. Beautifully designed. Ben Sims, the tight end, into the end zone for the touchdown.
Sikkim 365 Radio is presented by IdealMRI.com. High-quality MRIs for $497 or less. IdealMRI.com. Your health is important, so is your budget.
Purdy over the middle, and intercepted. Tejada down the sideline. And pushed out of bounds.
The 3 o'clock hour is sponsored by Waco Custom Marketplace. Meats, sweets, Texas treats, and a cut above the rest. 425 Lake Air Drive, Waco.
Prescott going end zone. It's caught for the touchdown. Dalton Schultz.
Now here's David Smoak and Craig Smoak.
All right, on this Thursday afternoon, good afternoon. Sikkim 365 Radio, 365 Sports. There's one of us missing today. It's the first week of the Texas high school football season. So much to do when it comes behind the scenes, and Paul Catalina is working his magic when it comes to what we have with commercials and sponsors and billboards and segments and more with our games that we'll have tomorrow night in Waxahachie and in Round Rock. Craig Smoak is here with me on the set. We'll take you up until 6 o'clock today on Sikkim 365 Radio. YouTube chat room is already at work. All right, here we are. This is the statement we thought maybe would come down Friday. No surprise here. And obviously, just another little jab. Pac-12 statement on expansion following consultation. Presidents, chancellors, ADs. Pac-12 has made the decision not to pursue expansion of our membership at this time, made following extensive internal discussion analysis based on the current competitive strength and cohesiveness of our 12 universities. It is also grounded in our confidence in our ability as a conference to best support our student athletes to grow, thrive, both academically and athletically. So there's that. Paul is gone. Craig and I will try to weave through the next 3 hours. Craig Smoak, just yet another Big 12 left in the dust.
Yeah, I mean, I can't say that I'm all that surprised. I think the feeling around here yesterday was that the Pac-12 was probably not going to expand just based on the alliance. It didn't really make a whole lot of sense unless they saw somebody that they felt could bring in some big money to the conference. And based on, all the information we've seen and just the various talks that we've had, it didn't appear that there was really any strong candidate out of the Big 12 that was going to make that much of a difference for the Pac-12, especially post-alliance, when they know now they can, have this immediate connection with the Florida States, Clemson's, Michigan's, Ohio State's, all that will come with that alliance. So I can't say that I'm surprised. I think, though, if you're the Big 12, is it weird to say this is probably good news for you if you're the remaining 8? Because, certainly better news would have been the Pac-12 saying, hey, we're going to consolidate the entire Big 12 into the Pac-12. That would have been the best news possible, and everything would have been answered, and there would have been no loose ends, and everybody would have been back in a spot. But now it's still the little 8 that's out there by themselves. So they still have autonomy power. We know that the AAC schools, they desire that. And now the Big 12, I would think, is in a position where they are going to, go searching for some teams to add. They don't really have much of a choice as far as I'm concerned.
Well, yeah, I agree with you. In fact, time for the Big 12 to go on the offense. This is from the 254. Load up with the Brigham Youngs, the Boise States, Houston, Cincinnati, whoever else. Start building. We'll get better in football, still be elite basketball. Stop sitting around hoping for someone to rescue you. Side benefit, you make Oklahoma and Texas still pay. And then the chat room as well. Some of you are saying, hey, I just read, we heard. No, it's official. The Pac-12, we just read the statement. They are not, at least based on the statement today, they will not be expanding. And so my question to you, whether you're a fan of the remaining 8 or not, if you are a college football fan, and if you were the Big 12, and I know some of you might say, well, they're dead. We're going to right now look at it differently. What would you do? If you were the Big 12, what is now your option? Stay patient, try to collect checks from Texas and Oklahoma, or would you go on the offensive like the 254 just in fact said to us on the chat room, text line? By the way, the number open, 254-339-1122. Max Olson, theathletic.com, will join us at 4, his thoughts on what this means. He wrote a story about the Big 12 on Tuesday. And then also today we have Seth Littrell, head coach at North Texas, Mickey Spagnola on the Cowboys. Craig's off the radar, as well as some of our guests. And former and longtime collegiate offensive line coach John Grimes, who's retired. He has coached in the SEC. He has coached in a lot of different places, including the Big 12 as well. So, Craig, 100% offense, go on offense. You can sit there and wait, and all you're going to do is just be left out of yet the next party that the invitations go out to.
Well, I mean, what would you be waiting for?
Nothing. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you're waiting to just wait for something to maybe happen? I mean, there's no wait for anything right now. There are no invites coming as it stands right now. The Pac-12's not open for business. The Big Ten's not going to add any of these 8 teams. For all the talk the last few weeks, I don't see Kansas in the Big Ten. I don't see West Virginia in the ACC. I don't see Tech and Oklahoma State to the Pac-12. So all these things that, some people out there, and you know how it is, the rumor mill and everything, we're like, oh, man, just wait, just big announcement, and all that, and here we are, and everybody's in the same spot they were. So, yeah, they have no other choice but to go on the offensive. I think the good news here is that you have 8 teams now that have to be even more together than they were before. You still have to have your head on a swivel, of course, but I think you at least feel a little bit better about working together, all 8, to now go out and grab some teams. I mean, I don't think you have any other choice. And if you're the Big 12, you go out and you add UCF, and you go out and you add, BYU or whoever you want to end up adding to the mix. And you just better hope that you have a team that jumps up and makes some noise in the playoffs, right? You hope that, Baylor or someone like that goes and wins another title in basketball. I mean, all you can really do is plug the holes as best you can. So you're plugging these massive holes that are Oklahoma and Texas with probably 4 other brands, and there's still going to be a little bit of a leak there. But if you can get everybody on the same page and just go out and win and do the best that you can, then who knows what it looks like in 3 years when these other contract rights are coming up and other conferences are starting to shore those back up. I mean, that's really all you can do from my vantage point, is go out there, put together the best conference you can, and go out and play the best you can in football and basketball in particular. Hope you win some titles and hope that makes a difference. But really, I don't see what your other choices are.
This is from the 304 West Virginia fan, Deke in West Virginia. Let's just keep the Big 12 together, get Oklahoma and Texas money, bring in a few new teams, hope we can stay Power 5 and not take too much of a hit when it comes to revenue. From Matt in D.C., when no one wants you, you go into business for yourselves. Expand. From Brandon. Nah, let's see here. Don't do anything right now. Collect the checks and talk to them in a few years. So everybody's got a different opinion. From Scotty, I would expand to 10 or 12 teams, be on the offensive, besides waiting on Texas and Oklahoma. Checks, and one more on the text line. Expand or be relegated to a group of 5 conference, go on the offensive, and those are just the text numbers. We'll take your calls as well. Armstrong, open up the lines for a couple of calls if we got them, and then also the chat room.
And here's the thing, if you go and you add 4 of the best teams available, and, whoever that would be, UCF, BYU, keep mentioning the same teams, but when that time comes, when the conference contracts are up in 23, 24 for, pretty much everybody but the ACC, then, if you're going to be relegated at some point, at least be the best team, the best conference when it comes to relegation. If that, you know what I'm saying, is like, go ahead and take over. Like right now, the AAC is the best non-Power 5 conference, right? They're the best non-Power 5 conference. You go poach their 4 best teams or whatever, and at worst, you'll be the best non-Power 5 conference in a few years. At best, you maybe be good enough that UCF's risen as a program, or whoever it's going to be.
Right.
Or even just your own 8 teams have risen up and maybe hit a different level. Kansas wins a title in basketball, or Tech, or whatever. And, then if it turns out that this is all destined for just non-Power 5 status anyways, then at least you'd be the strongest, without a doubt, non-Power 5 here in 3 or 4 years, which should be worth.
If they're going to be a part of the playoff,
and we should be worth a little something, rather than falling even farther down the ladder.
Here's my favorite analogy I've read so far, and they're coming in just like this: 8-6-4. What happens when a team goes into prevent defense? You lose. Time to go out. Add Brigham Young or North Carolina. I believe he meant UNC. UCF, I'm not sure. Cincinnati and Houston from the 4-8-0 expand. You need that 13th data point. Don't forget that. With a conference championship to be able to make the playoffs in the 903, add 8 teams. Yeah, you'll make less money, but that's a given now. 16 teams would really help keep visibility, significance in the rankings moving forward. 10-team conference minus your Blue Bloods will be overlooked. And Nate in Fort Worth, thanks for your text as well.
I think they need to at least get up to 12. Unless they feel like, just 2 teams, and I would assume that would probably be UCF and BYU. I don't know that, though. But I'm just thinking about, money and market, and not so much market with BYU, but you know what I mean? Just all the intangibles. I'd like to see them go past 10 and get to have a little bit more strength, because they've been sitting at 10 for a while now, and now they're sitting at 8 basically. But whatever makes the most sense. You got to trust Bob Bowlesby to do that. But yeah, it's all in his hands now. If they don't go out and do something or react to this in some type of way, or they just sit on their hands again, then there's really no excuses anymore. They've had the wake-up call of wake-up calls. If this doesn't change their leadership into being more on the cutting edge, not just talking about streaming rights and things, but actually being engaged and involved and making some progress in that regard, then there's no lesson that could ever come that would teach these guys to better manage this conference. So we'll see.
Armstrong, we got some calls. You want to load them up for me and Craig, and we'll try to get to them as soon as we can.
Okay, it looks like we got Chris
in Missouri. Chris, good afternoon. In Missouri, usually one of our leadoff hitters on 365 Sports, Sick and 365 Radio. Thanks for the call.
Hey, guys. Good to talk to you. Hey, I really can't even believe this is a question. I believe you have to expand. If you're a patient and you're on life support, the last thing you want to do is say, well, I could just ride it out and do nothing until I die, or I could take this experimental treatment, and maybe have some, diminished capacity of getting back to normal. You have to expand. You have to at this point. Because if you don't, let's say West Virginia goes to the ACC and the Big Ten picks off Iowa State and Kansas, dropping in the 5 teams and having Bob Bowlesby, who's shown very poor leadership, I would think the AAC at that point would have a compelling argument to say, look, I know that they make more money and they're grandfathers, but you guys are better off here. I just think if the Big 12 is going to have any future, they have to strike now while the iron's hot. Thanks, guys.
Thank you, Chris in Missouri. Appreciate the call. And I'm going to get to some of the chat comments because there's a bunch of them with ideas about what to do next or not. 254-339-1122.
I just don't see how they they can sit pat. I don't see how that's going to work. Even collecting the money here and whenever that timeline is that they would get from Oklahoma and Texas, obviously it'd be dependent on when Texas and Oklahoma actually leave for the SEC, which I think most of us are just assuming it will be after this season. But, yeah, I'm with you. I mean, I think they've got to do something. They've got to do something because that Power 5 status, again, that's something we can ask Max about, the autonomy and all of that. But you know what your future looks like right now, and it's a future with no exits. It's the building that you're living in right now. And so there's some flames, and you got to put those out as best you can and keep that house upright. And I think by doing that, you probably need to add some more firefighters from Orlando and from Provo and from maybe a couple of other places, Cincinnati maybe Houston, to help, put that fire out. And then you start to rebuild and build this thing stronger than it was before. And I don't know if that analogy works or not, but that's kind of how I view it, is the house has been on fire. You need a little help putting it out, and then you need a little help rebuilding it. And it might not be, the premier universities, but all those teams are locked up, and the schools remaining aren't the premier universities either. So it's going to be a bunch of schools that have been in a similar boat to you before, and maybe that'll give this conference a little bit more of an identity, of the schools that are the leftovers, the left outs, and I'm with you though. They've got to do something in terms of going out and being proactive and adding.
I want to respond to a handful of you on the chat room. For example, Debbie Elder, talking football when America is burning. God bless those families who've lost sons and daughters today. I know and we know what's going on the U.S. aircraft carrier. Yes, it's been a horrible day. We understand it. Craig's grandfathers, both of them, my father, they served this country. Paul's father served the country. We all have former military members as parents, or some have served who do, in fact, are a part of this show. We understand. We also understand that sometimes to get away, not to forget, but to get away some things that are going on, that we are here to do what we do, and that's talk sports, but we do get it, and some of you have brought that up, and thank you for doing so. From Owen, and then another call after Owen. Will these expansion teams help in the long run instead of the short run? Here's the thing, Owen. I think I responded to you. There won't be any long run if you don't get through the short run, the short term. So I can't answer that, but they got to find a way, not just to put a Band-Aid on a gash or a scar or a big, huge welt. They got to find a way to do something that's got stability that will be more than just a couple of years.
Well, no, I mean, I'm going back to the text about what's going on today overseas in Kabul and all that. I mean, yeah, that's definitely been on my mind, but we're not Fox News. We never have been, so that's not really our subject matter. And just because we're talking about something different doesn't mean our mind can't be on more than one thing at a time. I understand for some people that's how it works, but I can be thinking about something else and talk about something else at the same time, with all due respect. So just wanted to say that. But as far as the teams and whether or not they would add value, that's something I'm interested to ask Max about, because I don't know the answer to that question. That was my thing all along, was with people bringing up Houston or bringing up, anybody for that matter, was, does it make sense? Does it make sense? For example, with the Pac-12 and everybody that was talking about, Oklahoma State and Texas Tech or K-State or whoever it was, my whole thing every time with that was, well, the Pac-12 doesn't really have to do anything, so does it make sense for them to add anybody? Not just, hey, we have more teams now, but does it make sense financially for UCLA and USC and those schools who are making really good money to then add some teams that do nothing but inflate the number of teams, but actually bring the money that's being divided amongst the schools down? So would UCF and BYU or Houston or whoever amongst these same teams that we always mention, would they bring the money down? I wouldn't think so, but I also don't know that for a fact. Would they potentially bring the money up? That would, if there is a combination out there that would bring the money up, even if it's just a tick, that's the combination you bring in. But I don't know if that combination exists right now. I would have to think that UCF, BYU, Houston, Cincinnati, for example, would raise the Big 12's TV stock a little bit in the long run, but I don't know that for sure. I don't know what the networks think about those teams. I know they like them as AAC teams. ESPN loves them as AAC teams, right? They want to keep them as AAC teams probably. But as Big 12 members, I don't know. I'd have to ask somebody that's got more of a knowledge of values and things like that to see what kind of a difference they would make.
All right, back to the calls, Armstrong. We do have Seth Littrell. He's the head coach at North Texas on the show coming up at 3:30. Phil Bennett, who's been one of our favorite guests ever, former Baylor defensive coordinator, is there. But Seth Littrell today at 3:30. Max Olson will be really important today as well at 4 o'clock, a national writer for theathletic.com. Armstrong?
Okay, it looks like we got BJ. BJ, you're on from
BJ,
Denver.
is this the Florida State fan or a different BJ? BJ, good afternoon. Thanks for your call.
Yeah, this is the same BJ, and thank you guys for having me on. So a couple things really quick. I think the Big 12 is the Big 12. There's nothing wrong with being the Big 12. Good product, good teams. And I think they need to start acting like the Big 12, right? Come from a position of strength. And as it pertains to expansion, I'm a big proponent of big public universities, right? Even if the football product isn't there, the alumni base is there, and they're a good, strong school. So UCF, I like Colorado State University. I like University of New Mexico, big state universities. And that's, if I were looking at expansion, along with Boise State as well, and BYU, get about 4 or 5 teams, get up to 14, I think, split them 7 and 7, and have at it. Thank you guys for having me on.
Hey, BJ, as you always, thank you for your call and insight at 254-339-1122 on 365 Sports. Let's go to another call, Armstrong. Do we have another one lined up?
Well, I like BJ's comments.
Yeah.
And yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And
I was waiting on him. That's what. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, BJ, appreciate the phone call. Yeah, that scenario makes a lot of sense. And I was going to make mention too that John Wilner, who's big on the Pac-12, he writes out there on the West Coast and is locked into the Pac-12 as anybody. And he wrote an article about how the Pac-12 isn't looking to expand right now, but if they were, there is one clear-cut team that they should add, and it was Houston. And it was because of the market and research and money and things like that. And I know I've said time and again that if you're the Big 12 and you don't have to add Houston, you'd prefer not to add Houston if you're those Texas schools. And I think everybody can understand why you would not want another Texas school on your level when you have an advantage over them right now in recruiting and in other areas as a Power 5. But you would look really silly if the Pac-12 came and poached Houston before you could bring them into the Big 12.
Yeah.
So they don't look like they're getting an invite like right away, but that is certainly a school that appears to be of interest potentially for the Pac-12 if they are to make a move, despite what they said today. So you wonder if that plays into the Big 12's way of thinking as well.
All right, let's go to a couple of text chat room, and then Armstrong will go back to the calls. From Stan for Oklahoma State anyway. Now we go down with the Baylors of the world. Stan, I think both of them are in the same boat. See, that's one of the problems.
Who is Stan's a fan
Stan,
of?
well, obviously he's an Oklahoma State fan. Here's one of the problems. That's why the Big 12 is in disarray. Because
real.
of your absolute chat you just put on there. I don't care whether you're an Oklahoma State fan or an Iowa State fan or a Baylor fan or whatever. This is not about that, but that's why the conference is in disarray, because of your stupid chat room comment about going down with the Baylors of the world. What the hell has Oklahoma State done? What has Baylor done? Yes, they've had some success in different ways, but that's why the conference sucks. Not just because Texas and Oklahoma are bullies, but because you fans sometimes are so bitter and petty, and instead of you trying to stick together, you got to be a smartass. Why? You're just as negative or just as worthless as a program as everyone else based on what you just said. But why bring them in? How come you didn't bring TCU into the mix or Texas Tech or K-State? What the hell? Be smarter than that, Stan.
I would just say go down. You've been with them for the last several years, like the last 20 years. So I don't know where you were previously, where you were like living in a house above maybe, but based on as long as I've been following the Big 12, I'm pretty sure they've been in there together the entire time. So, yeah, I mean, nice cheap shot, I guess, if that makes you feel better, but whatever.
All right, back to the calls. Armstrong, 254-339-1122.
Yeah, it looks like we got Paul from Grand Prairie.
From Grand Prairie, just up in the Dallas and Fort Worth area. In fact, we'll be up there a couple of weeks from now with a high school game at South Grand Prairie at Gopher Bowl. How you doing, Paul?
Hey, how are you guys doing?
Doing great, thank you.
One thing, when we're talking about expansion, how come we don't look at somebody national like Navy?
Service Academy is a little bit of a different deal, and Navy, I don't know. I mean, that's a good question. I mean, they are in the AAC. Maybe that would potentially be a team. I think they would be somebody that would bring value. And I don't know, maybe folks just don't naturally bring them up because they don't necessarily think of Navy first as like just as a football program in their minds. Maybe the Service Academy status does that. I don't know. I don't have a great answer for you, but I'm not sure of Navy and their interest potentially if they would ever want to join the Big 12. I mean, I don't see why they wouldn't. But yeah, I don't necessarily have them ever pop into my head when these discussions happen, to be quite honest with you. I don't know about everybody else. I don't want to speak for everybody else, but and I don't know. You got any thoughts on why Navy's never mentioned?
You know, I would absolutely, but I'm biased. My dad's a Naval Academy graduate. Again, Craig's grandfather. His other grandfather obviously was a part of the Navy as well. There's nothing wrong with that. I mean, we love it, but why? I would love to include Army and Navy. Now, would that bring TV network eyeballs and would that bring more revenue? No, I don't think so. I would love that. I think having some of the armed forces as a part of your conference is a pretty good deal, but it doesn't probably get you where you need to be to survive and or a part of the big picture. But it's a good question. We appreciate that. Also, Josh Adams, Big 12 should add Boise State for brand recognition, fan base. Houston would be great for the potential growth. Craig's kind of discussed that. Already being set up with a great stadium. The Bird knew, I just feel bad for the 8 teams. They got screwed over by Texas and Oklahoma. Each university has to do what's best for themselves. Going to be hard now to stick together. No academies for the Big 12, according to Caden Grace. That was his opinion on that as well.
Okay, yeah. I mean, I have no, definitive reason why Navy wouldn't make sense or why they would or would not be members of the Big 12. I actually just looked up, I see a ton of tweets of people suggesting them going like football only in the Big, just people throwing out ideas and all of that. But yeah, Navy is just a team I don't think often of, I guess, in this mix because we hear the same ones over and over, Cincinnati, BYU, et cetera. What was that last text again? Can you read that again?
No academies in the Big 12.
Yeah, the one before that.
I feel bad for the Big 8 teams. They got screwed over by Texas and Oklahoma. Each university has to do what's best for themselves. Going to be hard to stay together.
Yeah, I would think it would be easier than ever to stay together at this point now. I mean, yeah, you're right in that it's every man for himself, but I feel like the round of getting that phone call where you would, perhaps ditch the others and go out on your own way, those phone calls don't appear to be coming right now. The Pac-12 just basically said today they're not going to be making any phone calls to these teams. So unless the Big Ten, Pac-12, ACC alliance has plans to add a Houston or someone like that here in the near future, unless the SEC has grander plans than what they're already at, which I don't know how they would top Oklahoma and Texas with adding like Baylor and TCU or something. So that wouldn't really make a ton of sense. I mean, I don't think they have any choice but to stick together, I guess is my point, more so than ever right now after today's news.
Yeah, they right now, the only thing they have is themselves in a lot of ways. One note in the text from the 580, Big 12 isn't going to officially expand until the Texas OUs officially leave. Big 12, as it stands, will exist until 24-25, no matter what anything is said or done or written. And that's a good point. As well, it's like we've said it many times. You're damned if you do. If you wait, damned if you don't, because you don't appear to know or be aggressive enough to try to make this work. When we come back, we're going to hear from North Texas football coach Seth Littrell and much more. And this is Sikkim 365 Radio. Pickup Outfitters, it will load up and spice up your pickup truck, your minivan, or your SUV with bumpers and grill guards, and also what else you may need when it comes to accessories. Pickup Outfitters, Jay Errett, the owner, 220 Lake Air Drive in Waco. So if you have a pickup truck and for whatever reason you don't like the grill guard it came with, or maybe you've had it for a little while and you want to change it to something maybe bigger or even smaller, Pickup Outfitters can help you with that. They have the accessories in their store, and they will find it if they don't and make sure they install it for you, and you will have that lifetime warranty with the installation that comes if you get it from Pickup Outfitters and they install it. And their bays are clean as a whistle. Techs and specialists are fantastic. They have been growing since the day Jay Errett bought the company, and it's just been a few years and continues to think outside the box. Pickup Outfitters, createacommotion.com.
It's time for some high school football. Berg Colgan Ford proudly celebrates the Panthers, Cadets, Lions, and all the Central Texas football teams as they march their way through the season and down the field. Hi, I'm Mark Stewart with Berg Colgan Ford. We'd love to show you our Broncos, Raptors, and Mustangs. These vehicles are winners with their sporty options and designs. Nominate who you think deserves the Built Ford Tough Player of the Week at FordPlayerOfTheWeek.com. Visit us anytime at BKFord.com, making buying your next Ford simple at BK Ford.
At Ideal MRI, we feel blessed to be a part of the Waco community. We're a small family business right here in Central Texas, and our goal is to bring down the cost of healthcare while maintaining high quality. At times like this, the cost of healthcare has never been more important, and unfortunately, significant illnesses and injuries still occur. That's why Ideal MRI is open and here to serve you through the difficult time. We offer premium MRIs just like a hospital with state-of-the-art technology and specialists, but you'll pay less. Sometimes thousands of dollars less, whether you're using insurance or not. At Ideal MRI, we accept most insurance and there are no hidden costs, even offering financing if that's needed. Everything included in the price, and you'll not get something as a surprise in the mail later on. If you need an MRI, ask your doctor about Ideal MRI. They'll know. You can schedule an appointment safely from home online in minutes at idealmri.com or give us a call, 833-IDEAL-MRI, idealmri.com.
Baylor Scott and White, Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics, the team physicians for Baylor Athletics, diagnosing and treating all sports-related injuries, including concussions. These specialists also provide orthopedic services for athletes and non-athletes alike, whether it's knee or shoulder pain, hand or wrist injuries, orthopedic spine care, and even an arthritis and total joint clinic. Trust the doctors Baylor Athletics trusts. Baylor Scott and White, Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics wants to get you back in the game.
At Marco's Pizza, get craveable pizza made the Italian way with dough made from scratch, an original sauce recipe, 3 fresh signature cheeses, and premium toppings you love, served hot and safe. Right now, you can get unlimited medium one-topping pizzas for just $6.99 each. Why stop at just one? Order with your app or at marcos.com for curbside, carryout, or delivery today. Marco's, pizza lovers get it.
Did you know that 1 out of every 4 men have symptomatic low levels of testosterone and don't even know it? And if you think you're too young to worry about it, guess again. Low T levels can make you feel tired and grumpy, cause weight gain, and wreak havoc on your sexual desire and performance. Petty Clinic Low T can set up same-day blood screening and results, so if you're tired of being tired, I challenge you to man up and Google search Low T Waco or go online pettycliniclowt.com. It's a private clinic with an atmosphere catering to men. Affordable, only $150 a month, includes lab work, office consultation, testosterone injections, follow-up visits compared to $395 a month in Dallas or Austin, and you don't have to fight the traffic. Petty Clinic Low T as board-certified physician consultations will provide the best form of brand-strength testosterone available. Contact Petty Clinic Low T today, just off Highway 84 and Old Hewitt Drive in Woodway. Petty Clinic Low T, helping men become the high-performance men they deserve to be. PettyClinicLowT.com or Google search Low T Waco.
One size fits all. That may be all right for an adjustable belt or cheap sunglasses, but when it comes to your financial needs, no one wants a one-size-fits-all strategy. Cam Heathcott, your Edward Jones financial advisor, knows that his most important goals are yours. That's why he takes the time to understand your needs, knowing you. That's how Edward Jones makes sense of investing. Cam Heathcott, covering Conroe and Houston, 936-756-7717 or cam.heathcott@edwardjones.com. Edward Jones, member SIPC.
Welcome back to Sikkim 365 Radio. Call us on the Bet US hotline, 254-339-1122.
All right, this 3 o'clock hour continues. Max Olson, theathletic.com, today at 4 o'clock. We're now joined by North Texas football coach Seth Littrell, the Mean Green, and in his time with North Texas, a couple of teams right off the top with 9 wins. The last couple of years, they're trying to turn things back around. Coach Littrell, thanks for your time on Sikkim 365 Radio. Craig Smoak and David Smoak with you. How have you felt about what's gone on so far with your fall workouts leading up to your opener?
I'll tell you what, it's been incredible. Our guys have worked extremely hard. Really feel like our team has a chip on their shoulder and getting back to just grinding and going to work every day. I know our defensively, I know our guys are really excited about our defensive staff, with Coach Bennett and all that group. They've built great relationships, and there's a ton of energy. And so I think just the energy on that side of the ball is tremendous. I think offensively we've gotten a lot better just because of the different things we're seeing in practice and working off with each other. And I think overall as a team is just continuing to progress and get a day better. So I'm excited how it's gone so far. We've stayed pretty much healthy. Obviously there's been a couple injuries here and there, but overall I've been pleased.
Coach, hopefully next year we won't have to ask questions like this, but I am curious with the difference this year and the build up to the season versus what we all know last year was like. How much of a difference have you felt in regards to your team and being ready for a season versus what you had to deal with a year ago?
Yeah, coming in this past year, no one knew what to expect, to be honest. Not only at the start of camp and through everything, but just every single week throughout the season. And it wasn't just us; everybody had to deal with it. So it was definitely one of those seasons. It was very challenging to everyone. We're blessed to have had the opportunity to get out there and compete and play. But there's no doubt it's a far different feeling this fall. We've had spring ball. We've come with a great summer. Guys are much better prepared to enter into fall camp in shape, ready to go. And so it's obviously been a lot better, and we're looking forward to hopefully, getting out there, getting after it, and being able to compete week in and week out and keeping our guys safe and healthy.
We have seen teams make decisions this week on their starting quarterback, Baylor, Texas A&M, among others. I know Austin Aune and Jace Ruder have been going at it, quarterback competition. Are you ready? Have you made that decision, or you got a little bit more you need to see?
Well, I'll tell you what, both those guys have done a tremendous job. Jace just been here we've worked with him now for 3 weeks. Very impressed with him coming in, learning our offense and, picking up with that speed and that tempo and being able to make good decisions. He's done a great job. And then obviously Austin's a guy that, played a lot of football this last year and actually started 8 games. So just his experience in this system, both those guys have gotten a lot better. They're continuing to work. They have a great relationship along with our entire quarterback room. I think that room's great. Coach Joseph does a great job with that group. They're all pulling for each other. They're competing against each other, and they're helping each other out. So I think we have a pretty good idea what direction we're going for game one. There's no doubt in my mind you'll see both of those guys at some point. But we're still not ready to name it, but we're there. I think we have a pretty good understanding of what's going to happen.
Well, it seems like whoever takes the job, Coach, they're going to have a very stout offensive line in front of them. Dazion Carroll, we covered him at Midway a few years ago. Mm-hmm. And you've also got a special running back in DeAndre Torrey. I do stats every week for the Earl Campbell Award, and I'm looking over all the box scores, and, man, it's like every week there was DeAndre Torrey. How have you seen him grow, and what are your expectations for him behind a veteran offensive line this season?
Well, first off, he's played a lot of ball here. He's a tremendous teammate and has turned into an unbelievable team leader. There's no doubt in my mind with his leadership and the things he works out on the field. It's impressive, and to be honest with you, it shows all the other guys who have not been here as long how to work and how to grind out each day. He sacrifices for his team, and he wants what's best over. He just wants to win. And I'll tell you this: we've done a lot of different things with him from spring now through summer and fall camp. Of just moving him around. He's one of our better playmakers, just trying to get the ball in his hands in a lot of different areas, whether it's out of the backfield, whether it's in the slots, just being able to play around with him. He's really grown on that role. He's probably one of the smarter offensive guys we have. He could honestly go out and play any skill position, maybe other than quarterback. Now, he doesn't want to hear that. But he can play any of the receiver spots. He can play running back. So he's extremely smart and just brings a tremendous value to our team. But I'll tell you this right now, I know you've covered Dazion for a long time. There's not a man I'm more proud of just from the day he stepped in on campus here and the way he's worked. I'll tell you what, he has had a tremendous fall camp, and I'm really excited to watch him go out and compete this fall as well.
With Torrey, over 3,300 yards of career yards, and with all the things, as you mentioned, all purpose. Okay, I have to ask this question. Hard Knocks and the Cowboys, and it's whoever in the NFL every year. Would Hard Knocks be even more popular if they followed Phil Bennett around to coaches' meetings and practice? Would they be allowed to air that?
I'll tell you this. I haven't watched one episode of Hard Knocks, but I would be a huge fan if they followed Phil around, because not only would it be great football and it would be awesome to, just his wisdom, his knowledge, but it would be comedy as well. I think it would be a little bit of everything. And so you would have some comedy, you'd have some drama, you'd have some action, maybe a little kung fu in there somewhere, a little Jean-Claude Van Damme. You never know. So that's something maybe we have to do.
We had him on last year almost every week on our show on Monday afternoon, so we're not happy that you stole him away from us, but we have had him on a couple of times since. But how did that go about? I know he had to go through some back surgery. He went to Arizona State, and he was semi-retired. Who made the first call, and what was that conversation like?
Well, I definitely made the first call, and to be honest, kind of understanding what I was the ultimate goal was, but kind of talking through initially just his thoughts defensively, not only with our defense and the things he's seen, but also kind of his thoughts on the direction I should go. Just waiting for a time to put it up in the air. Maybe you can come back and get this job done for me. And so there's no doubt in my mind. It was the best recruiting pitch I had all off season. It was my best recruit. I told him that whatever you need to get accomplished for us to get you here and help us win a championship, I'm all in. And so we had a lot of conversations, meeting face to face and really putting pen to paper on, what our needs are as a program, what his needs are to help this defense get back to where it needs to be. And to be honest, once we sit down, and we've had a great relationship over the years, he's always been one of my favorite coaches. The way he can build relationships with his players and his staff has been incredible. But we're extremely blessed to have him. Let's be honest. He doesn't like it when I say this, but I think his first defensive coordinator job was 1981 or 82, and I was born in 1978. So I can actually say he's forgotten more football than I've ever known in my entire life. He's been a head coach. It's a guy that I can really lean on. He has a ton of wisdom, and I'll tell you what, he's an unbelievable person.
Coach, there's some other connections that we kind of have with you, with Jim Cush now joining the staff as well. We got to know him here in Waco, and then Taylor Young at the same time, both as a player and then early on in his coaching career. Just any impressions of those guys so far?
They're ball coaches, and that's what it comes down to. I mean, Jim and Phil have been around each other a long time, and you can really see they're always on the same page. They understand each other's lingo and what they're trying to get accomplished. And the most impressive thing I've seen with our entire defensive staff are guys that, not only have been coached by Phil, but understand, what they're trying to get accomplished. They can pull the rope in the same direction. Everybody's on the same page, which I think is more than half the battle of just understanding, your strengths and weaknesses of your different calls. And look, we all have to be in it together. If guys aren't on the same page, if they're not pulling the rope in the same direction, it's very challenging. And I don't care. X's and O's can be thrown out the door. And so that's why it's a great cohesive unit. They do a great job of working together. And I think this is probably overall the most excited I've been, just because overall as a staff, we have a lot of fun together. We're all pulling the rope in that same direction. We're all helping each other. If we see something defensively we're trying to attack, we're going to go to them and tell them what we're trying to attack, and vice versa. They do a scouting report on our offense. And so it's just great having those guys in the room and everybody having a lot of fun and coaching each other up. And to me, that's what it's all about.
Your father was on the amazing mid-'70s Oklahoma teams with the early years of Barry Switzer, that 75 team that was incredible. You then were a part of the 2000 national championship team when Bob Stoops stunned everybody with that team after they had struggled a little bit in the 90s. What was that like to be a part and continue that lineage?
It was a blessing. That was a childhood dream of mine, and just to be able to follow in my father's footsteps of being able to go to Oklahoma, have an opportunity to play fullback, and hopefully have a chance to compete for a national championship. That's all I heard about growing up, and so that was obviously a huge goal of mine, and it was a blessing. Obviously, God God put me in a great situation to be able to do that. But I'll tell you this, don't let it, there's no mistakes about it. My old man always reminds me he has 2 national championships and I only have 1.
Yeah, he just puts up those big rings. Coach Blesh, your offensive coordinator, you mentioned Blake Joseph, the quarterback's coach. There's another connection to Central Texas that both of them once coached at Temple High School as well.
Absolutely.
And so that's not just Bennett and Taylor Young and Jim Gush, but also the connection to Temple High. And they've, of course, had a great run as well. They've kind of just settled right into that position, have they not, together? Does it help because they kind of maybe knew each other a little bit as well?
No doubt, and they're ball coaches. Look, they've coached together, and in college they were roommates at one point. And so obviously they have a very great relationship. And to be honest, that's what it comes down to. I think there's a lot of great coaches out there, but I think, when guys can get in the same room and have the same mindset and be able to communicate with each other and have fun working together, that's half the battle. But they do a tremendous job. I'm fired up about our entire staff, but I think offensively, Coach Blesh is doing an unbelievable job with our offense and our entire offensive staff. Again, we get in there and we grind together, and I think when you have that as a staff, that's when it carries down to your players, and it opens their eyes to understand if we're getting along offensively and defensively, and we're all pulling the rope in the same direction, they're going to do the same thing. And I've also been at places where it can be a little dysfunction, and if there's ever dysfunction within a staff, it's also going to carry down to your players. So it's a blessing. I love working with these guys. We're having a ton of fun, and we're looking to go out there and compete this year.
Seth, one more question, if you don't mind. Coach Bennett, when he arrived at Baylor, they had the dynamic offense. You have the dynamic offense. And I used to say, if they could just learn how to get a stop a half with the offense they had at the time, RG3, then they could probably add 2 to 4 wins to their schedule. I'm not saying that flippantly or any way, but is that just kind of you just need a stop or two more?
Well, yeah, and I think you got to match your defense with your offense and vice versa. I think they have to play off each other. And if you're going to be aggressive offensively, I feel like you have to be aggressive defensively. And the thing Phil understands is how we play, and he's been a part of that offense at Baylor. And he understands it's not so much about points; it's really points per possession. It's really how many opportunities, how many stops do you get in a game. What are your yards per gain within a game, and so there's a lot that goes into it, and he understands that. And again, he's seen pretty much everything. He's been a part of different offenses and different defenses, throughout his career, and he understands what it takes to get the ball back and get his stops, and that's what it's all about.
I got to share this text to you on the text line from the guy Shooter TX. Coach Littrell wins the award for Texas college coaches that you don't want to piss off in a dark alley. Dude is...
I'm a lover, not a fighter.
Yeah, and you wouldn't be in the dark alley. Hey, man, Seth, thank you. We have enjoyed the time. Taylor Young, we know, Jim Gush, Phil Bennett, and the ones we mentioned, the coaches from Temple, Blesh, all of them. Unbelievable. Thanks for your time. We appreciate it, and good luck this season.
Appreciate you having me on. Thank you.
Thanks to Taylor Bryan, who's now a part of the University of North Texas Athletic Communications staff, was at Baylor for a long time during the Matt Rule, and the first year under Dave Aranda for setting up Seth Littrell at North Texas.
Yeah, good to talk to Coach Littrell, and definitely we'll be scouring those North Texas box scores every Sunday from here on out, basically. And, when they had Mason Fine a few years back, not that long ago, he was always lighting up the scoreboard, and DeAndre Torrey's been a mainstay for a while now, as we talked about. They've had some great receivers roll through there as well. So there's a lot of potential at North Texas. Denton's a growing city, and got a lot of familiar people out there. So best of luck to all of them. And I know we got to go soon. And there's a few notes, from some of the college football reporters out there that I think would be worth talking about. Kleofkov talking about his conversation with Greg Sankey, where they discussed how the whole OU Texas thing went down. And there's some other stuff as well we can get into.
All right, when we come back, Craig will get that to you. We'll get more feedback from you. A lot of you on the chat room are just boom, 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 boom. That's great. The text line exploded again today. 365 Sports on YouTube, Sikkim 365 Radio, and we're back in a moment. The importance of getting a liver health screen. The prevalence of non-alcoholic fatty liver is up in our society 70%. Diabetics, 30% the general population. So the point there is fatty liver disease is up 30% in the general population, 70% for those who battle diabetes. Right now, Impact Research Institute, through Ideal MRI, which is another one of our sponsors, offering a test that takes about 5 to 10 minutes for fatty liver disease using what is a FibroScan, a small ultrasound device. In fact, I got a call from Rob Maxey at Ideal MRI, knowing that Dr. Gunn was on her way into town to open up Impact Research Institute. And I went and got the test. I didn't expect anything to have, like negative results from it. I feel like I'm in pretty good shape, but you never know. Sometimes that doesn't matter. It's like cholesterol. Sometimes you have it no matter what you do or how healthy you may be. So what Dr. Gunn is doing, Impact Research Institute is trying to help you become aware that fatty liver disease is a problem. And it also can be increased issue if you have diabetes, obesity, high blood pressure, and high cholesterol. They are trying to get you to understand. It would take 5 to 10 minutes, maybe a little bit more because you got to make the phone call, set up the appointment. Impact Research Institute, Dr. Gunn, trying to help make sure that you know whether or not you have fatty liver disease. And if you get inside of their program, if you do, there are grants and much more to give back to you as well. So have the opportunity, take the opportunity. It's Impact Research Institute and Dr. Gunn on Fish Pond Road in Waco.
Escape the mundane with the responsive power and exhilarating agility of a new Cadillac from Richard Carr Cadillac. Smile behind the wheel again in the supercharged sophistication of a CT4 or CT5 sedan, or the sporty and spacious XT4, XT5, or XT6 lineup of SUVs. Starting at only $33,395, the Cadillac of your dreams is waiting now at an affordable price at Richard Carr. Test drive from the expansive selection at Richard Carr Cadillac, or let us bring a test drive to you. Go to richardcarcadillac.com to schedule a test drive today.
Let Camille Johnson Realtors guide you seamlessly through the process of buying your dream home or selling your current one. Commercial, farm and ranch, or residential, Camille Johnson Realtors can smoothly and successfully lead you through any transaction. With a team of 28 experienced agents who are excited about serving you, Camille Johnson Realtors services the entire greater Waco area. If you're in the market to buy or sell, contact Camille Johnson Realtors, 104 Midway Center in Woodway, or find them online at www.camillejohnson.com. Camille Johnson Realtors, elegant, charming, warm. Welcome home.
Boozers is the wedding ring store and more. If you're ready to get engaged or already married and want to upgrade your wife's ring for a special anniversary, Boozers is the place to go. With the largest selection of premier quality diamond engagement rings and wedding rings in Central Texas. They have 7 cases with over 300 styles of rings from top designers like Natalie Kay. Choose from yellow, white, or rose gold, plus beautiful top quality loose diamonds. With an in-house jewelry, they can also custom make anything you want. Bring in a picture or drawing and let Boozers create your one-of-a-kind pendant or ring. They can even use some of your old gold and diamond jewelry to create something new. At Boozers, you'll find a great selection of quality timepieces, and Boozers is the place for expert watch maintenance and repairs too. They specialize in expert Rolex watch repair for fine jewelry, watches, custom work, and more. Go to Boozers on Valley Mills and Lake Air Drive in Waco.
Boozers, the wedding ring store and more.
Life is back on, sports bettors, and BetUS has your NBA, NHL, Major League Baseball, UFC, PGA, and yes, NFL betting lines up for their 27th year and live betting on all of it. Log into BetUS.com or call 800-792-3887. That's 800-79-BETUS. BetUS for 125% bonuses with promo code SICK'EM125. Customer service pros are ready to get your phone, social, and online sports betting kickoff started now. Play with the proven mainstay in the industry. BetUS. You bet, you win, you get paid. BetUS.com. Use promo code SICK'EM125.
Boots add protection. Good boots help you climb better and move forward faster. And when your son or daughter steps into the boots of a U.S. Army officer, they also learn how to lead. In these boots, they'll gain more confidence with expert training in one of more than 150 occupational specialties. In these boots, they'll stand a little taller and lead a team with diverse backgrounds and areas of expertise to successfully accomplish whatever challenge comes next. In these boots, they'll earn respect with valuable experience from day one that will give them solid footing for success into the future. Highly qualified candidates who earn a spot on our team can receive comprehensive health care coverage, college tuition assistance, and a bonus of up to $40,000. See all the things your son or daughter can achieve in our boots at GoArmy.com. U.S. Army Waco Recruiting Company, 254-598-8131 or 254-776-1543.
This is Sikkim 365 Radio. Text us at 254-339-1122. The Sikkim 365 Radio text line is sponsored by Riverbend Liquor and Wine, with the most extensive variety of craft beer in Waco. A hidden gem on Lakeshore Drive and 19th Street.
Max Olson, next segment, top of the 4 o'clock hour. Poll today on 365 Sports, 31 minutes old, 386 votes. They wouldn't just add one program, they would add multiple. But the first team they should add, 37% say Brigham Young, 27% Cincinnati, 25% UCF, and 11% Boise State. Thank you for voting in our 365 Sports poll.
Yeah, so Heather Dinich had a bunch of tweets a little while ago, and I thought it'd be interesting to just talk about those a little bit. She said, on the Pac-12 decision to not expand, bottom line, it's about stability now and as quickly as possible. The presidents and chancellors were unanimous in belief they can get same benefits in an alliance as if they were to have expanded, which makes sense. I mean, they've got the ACC and the Big Ten now, and those crossover matchups that will happen eventually. So that's something we discussed. Like, does it make sense for them post-alliance to still be adding teams if they don't bring value? Not really. So it's not that much of a surprise, and that seems to be their way of thinking as well. She says also Pac-12 knew that if it expanded, the Big 12 would implode. They didn't do it. It's a big boost to Big 12's chances of remaining a viable league if they can lure in AAC teams. If the AAC teams get Big 12 teams and make push for autonomy, all hell can break loose again. And that goes back to my whole, like, why would the AAC jump over to the Big 12 when the Big 12's dying and doesn't have any TV future beyond the next few years? Whereas with the AAC, you're already in bed with ESPN and you have a good relationship. And so she presents that as, you know,
as a positive,
as a possibility. Like, if you're the Big 12 schools, you don't want to fold backwards. You'd want the AAC joining you. So if they were to join the AAC for some reason, then that's what she's saying is all hell would break loose again, and hopefully that's not the direction that it goes. But here's what she said about talking to George Kliavkoff, Pac-12 commissioner. He explained to her how he had talked to Greg Sankey, SEC commissioner, and heard the whole story about the Oklahoma-Texas additions. And Kliavkoff says he believes Sankey. He also agrees that if those two schools had called any Power 5 commissioner, quote, we would have taken the call and acted the same way he did. She says she hasn't talked to one decision maker that has disagreed. And then finally, as one Big 12 source told me this past weekend, we better all be committed to making this Big 12, whatever it looks like, the best dang conference that we could possibly be. And that's what I was saying earlier. You add whoever you can add that can add some value, whoever that might be, and you go out there and you just play the best brand of sports that you can possibly play. Everybody, for the first time for these 8 schools in a long time, will be at a table where they actually feel like they all have an equal voice. Hopefully that would lead to more cohesion and more of a brand that actually works together rather than against each other, like the Big 12 seem to do so often. And I think that would go a long way towards stability for one. But yeah, I mean, they've got to kind of strike while the iron's hot. I don't think they need to panic and panic at anybody. But I think if you had the right combination of teams, you could be highly competitive in basketball. I mean, Baylor and Houston last year, if that was just the two, and then add Kansas into that. I mean, that's 3 big-time basketball teams from last year. Not that KU had their greatest year ever, but that's 3 teams that are pretty much annually in the top 25 in hoops now. Now, on the football side of things, you actually would get more top 25 teams. Yes, you lose Oklahoma, and we know Texas gets like the de facto top 25 ranking quite often, but Houston's in that thing on occasion. BYU's in that thing on occasion, so I don't think there would be that much of a...
And for them, getting into a Power 5 could only help their recruiting, which is kind of the thing with Houston. And if you're Oklahoma, if you're Baylor, TCU and Texas Tech, because you're kind of helping somebody help you at the same time you might be making them better.
Yeah, I mean,
but hey, you know what? They don't have a choice, maybe.
No, they probably don't. And so that's the thing is, like, yeah, if you're Baylor, Tech, and TCU, you'd rather Houston probably not be in the conference. But if that's the school that's going to bring the most eyeballs, is going to bring part of that Houston market, then you have no choice. You have to add them because, yes, you raise them up, but they're also helping you out in a major way as well. So that's what these 8 commissioners, 8 presidents, or 8 ADs, I should say, and 8 presidents need to figure out is who would make us as stable as possible, who would be on board and be a part of the team, because they have an opportunity to actually have a team as a conference now, as opposed to really what it was the last several years, really since its existence. A couple of teams and everybody else that they look down on. It's in the Big 12's court right now, but I'm sure the AC is doing a lot of dribbling over in their home quarters as well.
All right, when we come back, Max Olson, he's been all over this, along with a few of the national writers at theathletic.com, and even yesterday, Adam Rittenberg of ESPN, and those who have tried to cover this from a national perspective. Max Olson's response to the Pac-12, the alliance with the conferences other than the SEC and the Big 12, and much, much more. And then today, former longtime collegiate offensive line coach John Grimes will join us sometime around 4:20 or so. His perspective from a coach's point of view on the teams going into the SEC. He's coached in both the Big 12, SEC, and then Craig's off the radar. All right, we have a lot to get to, and we will. And this is Sikkim 365 Radio.
Make this a summer event is going on now at Allen Samuels with the all-new 2021 Jeep Grand Cherokee L, now arriving and in stock. This beautiful, rugged third-row seat carries the prestigious Jeep heritage. The 2021 Jeep Grand Cherokee Laredo, with values of $3,500 or 0% for 48 months, plus $2,000 in bonus cash. Allen Samuels.
Come by. Let's be friends.
See dealer for details. All offers have credit requirements.
With more than 160,000 alumni worldwide and counting, the Baylor family is growing. And through the university's expanded Baylor alumni program, the family is growing closer. With hundreds of local volunteers planning events in cities and towns around the country, you can gather with fellow Bears no matter where you are. So, get connected, get something started, get involved, and make plans to get together with Baylor alumni. Visit us at baylor.edu/alumni.
Do you or your kids get nervous about going to the dentist? Stonewood Dental, Dr. Steve Childress, he can help.
I've spent a career taking care of patients who as children had bad experiences, and now they're adults that hate going to the dentist. If I get a kid at 3 years old and they come every 6 months and it's a happy experience, it's normal for them. Now they have an accident at 6 or 7 or 8 at school. Now they have a broken tooth or a trauma, and they have to come here. They're used to lights, they're used to water in their mouth, they're used to experience, they already trust us. It's amazing what we can do with that kid without it being a negative thing. But if I see a 6 or 7 or 8 year old that's never been to the dentist, and now they have a trauma or an unfortunate unexpected toothache, it's harder to do that for that kid and it not be somewhat of a negative experience. So bottom line is I try to teach kids and adults and teenagers and everybody the way I'd want my family treated, which is where it's a necessary part of life. You just take care of it. It doesn't have to be that big a deal.
Learn more, stonewood-dental.com.
Riverbend Liquor and Wine, Lakeshore Drive at North 19th Street in Waco is a hidden gem. They've got a great selection of spirits, wine, and the most extensive selection of craft beer in Waco in their gorgeous walk-in fridge. And they have an amazing array of high-end bourbons like Pinhook, Weller, Buffalo Trace, Brush Creek, Hotel, Garrison Brothers, Thomas S. Moore, Hooten Young, and Bardstown. Great customer service and a convenient and speedy drive-through window. Riverbend Liquor and Wine. Find out more on Facebook and Instagram.
In the market for a quality metal building? Since 1943, Pioneer Steel and Pipe has helped Central Texas residential and commercial customers with metal building design, panel options, building components, and trim options. Pioneer Steel and Pipe's residential line is energy efficient, offers low maintenance, reduces insurance payments, is impact resistant, and carries up to a 45-year limited warranty. In addition, they can also help you find a metal building contractor for your project. Pioneer Steel and Pipe with locations in Waco and Bryan and at pioneersboys.com.
It's time time to fire up the grill, heat up the oven, or get that deep fryer going to enjoy the top quality products at Waco Custom Marketplace. Order 30-pound sacks of live crawfish by 6 on Wednesday. Pick up on Friday afternoon after 2 or Saturday. Enjoy the weekend. 30-pound sacks of live crawfish available right now for $4.25 a pound. Find all the crawfish boil ingredients you need, including red beef potatoes, sausage, corn cobbettes, and Louisiana boil seasoning. Make your order for live crawfish by Wednesday at 6. Pick up on Friday after 2 or all day Saturday, and enjoy the weekend. Waco Custom Marketplace, your home for fresh baked kolache, cinnamon rolls every day. Butcher shop to cut your steaks the way you want. Fresh seafood, summer sausage, boudin, house cured and smoked bacon, spices, seasoning, soup mixes, and more, and weekly gift boxes for any occasion. Waco Custom Marketplace, 425 Lake Air Drive in Waco, or WacoCustomMarketplace.com.
Welcome back to Sikkim 365 Radio. It's time for our weekly segment with Max Olson of The Athletic. Brought to you by Pioneer Steel and Pipe, where customer service is their main focus, and best in metal, steel, and pipe for large or small projects, with 2 locations in Waco and Bryan. Family owned and operated since 1943.
Now here's David Smoak and Craig Smoak.
Hey, Paul will be back with us tomorrow. We're traveling tomorrow, but we'll have our show at 3 o'clock. We're now joined by Max Olson, theathletic.com. We've known Max a long time, one of the great national writers, and had nothing really to talk about or to investigate or write about the last few weeks. Max, great to have you again. Every day is a new day, and then yet again it's the same day for the Big 12. The Pac-12 announced, not a surprise, that they would not expand. Was that actually good or bad news for the remaining 8 in the Big 12?
Oh, man, I thought you guys would ask me about, like, Gary Bohannon or football season or something,
Oh,
you know?
God. Is that going on?
Is that
there a
happening
game
still?
coming up? Is there a fighting for positions?
Depth chart breakdown, maybe. I don't know, you know? I mean, I guess you guys want to talk about that stuff, we can. If you want. What was the question, Smokey?
You know what it was. Pac-12, is this a good day for the Big 12 or a bad one? They've had a lot of bad ones.
Yeah, I think there's definitely 2 ways to look at it. And I tried to sort of address this in my piece yesterday on The Athletic, that there are definitely members of the remaining 8 who understand that right now, and, never say never, but right now the other Power 5 leagues look like they're not expanding. And so they understand, hey, we need to now get together, the 8 of us, and put in the work to make the Big 12 as good as it can possibly be after Texas and Oklahoma leave. There are other members of the Big 12 that tried really hard to get into the Pac-12 and, want to have more options, obviously. You don't blame them, because you want to do everything you can to defend your school, and you want to have options, and you're obviously scared about the future of the Big 12. And so I think for the members that are still trying really hard to have an escape plan, today's a tough day, because it looks like over the short term here that those other 4 Power 5 leagues are not looking to expand. Now that could change, you can't say that now they're stuck together through 2025 or whatever. There's a lot that can still change, but this news is not surprising. But I'm sure for a few members of the Big 12 that were holding out hope that maybe they could go to the Pac-12, it's tough news to get.
So, Max, if you're these 8 schools and Bob Bowlesby, obviously, what's the next step as far as you're concerned?
I think you have to, from that standpoint, the Pac-12 news is good news for the Big 12, in that you can say, all right, look, this is the reality. You guys wanted to have as many options on the table. Well, a lot of those options are off the table now. And so let's get serious about our future. And, the Big 12, 3.0 or whatever you want to call it. And so I think now, obviously there are obstacles to just, totally getting right into expansion and all that kind of stuff, because you don't know what Texas and Oklahoma are going to do, if they're going to stay till 25 or if they're actually, trying to exit before then. But, I think right now Bob Bowlesby has an opportunity to, over these next few weeks, put together, a plan for what the future of this conference looks like, how they can make up this money that they're, potentially losing here. And obviously, I think it needs to be a compelling plan because there are still, there are definitely a few presidents out there that are frustrated and anxious. And, I think Bowlesby has to do a great job of coming up with a plan that everyone can get behind. And certainly the big challenge here, as we've talked about, is getting all 8 of them on the same page and collaborating and trusting each other.
You think they are?
I think they are doing that right now.
Yeah.
Everyone's kind of saying one thing and doing another. I think that's just kind of been the job for the last 4 or 5 weeks here. And I don't blame any athletic director or president or booster or whatever for doing that. I think right now everyone wants to talk about unity and, hey, we'll get through this together. But these schools have still spent the last 4 or 5 weeks, having all these conversations, trying to figure out what else is out there. And the unfortunate verdict today for them is that, the Pac-12 is not expanding and, Big Ten's never given any indication. I'm sure there's probably folks in West Virginia that hope the ACC has a change of heart about that. But unless the SEC is trying to do something crazy, I think that these folks right now are sort of stuck together and have no choice, but to work together.
So, Max, there's the whole autonomy thing. I've never quite understood, how long does that last for the Big Ten? Does that last through their TV contract no matter what they are at as far as the number of teams go?
Yeah, it's a great question. There's not some expiration date as far as I understand. No one has shown me that here in writing is when these are the 5 autonomy 5 leagues and up until this date, and then we'll see after that. This is stuff this is in writing in the NCAA bylaws basically that these 5 conferences, and they named the 5 conferences. Are the autonomy 5 conferences that have this decision-making power. So it would take, my understanding is it would take, a legislative process to, remove the Big 12 from that list of 5 schools. And so, look, I think my sense is there's not, there's the perception piece of that, obviously, of do people still view you as a Power 5 league? But in terms of the voting, and certainly the most important thing there, too, is also sort of the CFP shares and things like that. It's not like that expires in 2026 or something like that necessarily.
So that's why instead of the AAC being the one that could be more of the hunter in this situation because they have the ESPN deal and the Big 12's on shaky rocks, obviously, that's why the Big 12's still attractive, right? That's why this is going potentially in their direction rather than these 8 heading in the direction of the AAC.
Yeah, that's correct, at least at this point in time. I think there's, since this all began, Bowlesby has heard from, 15 plus schools, most of the AAC, most of the Mountain West. Certainly, I think BYU is a real possibility too. And I'm sure there's been others, because, those schools desire Power 5 status and Power 5 money. Now, certainly we don't have a great understanding of, what does Power 5 money look like in the Big 12 beyond 2025? How different is that TV deal? But, if you're in the AAC right now, the distribution you're getting is, closer to 4 or 5 million and not, the Big 12 it's closer to 40. And I know even if you say, cut that in half or worse, it's still, we don't know what the financials look like in 25 and beyond. But I think for those group of 5 schools, it's still an upgrade in a lot of ways to be able to get into the Big 12.
Max Olson with us, theathletic.com, has been covering this since the day of, in fact, soon after Big 12 Media Days. Max, in the end, if the 8 teams, if they are patient and wait for Oklahoma and Texas to leave, then yes, they might get checks that might be less than what perhaps they should get, but it's money. But I don't see how they can just, where is Bob Bowlesby? Craig's brought this up, and we've all brought it up. What, you don't want to just hear him flap his lips, but should he not be at least out front in some ways saying something?
It's an interesting point. I think he put out a terse statement the other day about the alliance, but other than the day when he went after ESPN and that whole deal, that was probably the most he's kind of come out and spoken publicly about all this. That and the, appearing in front of that Senate committee for 2 hours or whatever it was in Austin. I think that's kind of the most we've publicly heard from Bob Bowlesby. And, I don't know. Do you feel like you want to hear him come out and say definitively, here's what we're doing, and reassure everybody this conference is going to be fine?
No, it's
That's
not,
what we were talking about. It's kind of damned if you do, damned if you don't, because there's not really anything he can say. But at the same time, for these 8 schools that are just kind of hanging by a thread, it would be nice to just have some type of a reassurance that the person in charge is active. You know what I mean?
But it might be behind the scenes with text messages and conference calls.
Yeah, I think everybody's probably assuming that he's making tons of those, and there's tons of things he can't talk about. But yeah, I mean, it's damned if you do, damned if you don't, really.
Well, I'm looking. You guys know from what's going on right now too that there's also the real serious issues that these athletic departments are dealing with again with in terms of campus policies and event policies and all the stuff that in dealing with the pandemic again. So it is a very full plate for all involved here. I'm not trying to make excuses or anything. I'm just saying I do wonder if this stuff will. Maybe this is wishful thinking, but I do wonder if this stuff will quiet down a little bit here, just because it seems like Oklahoma and Texas are going to stay silent about their intentions. And obviously with the semester and season starting and all that kind of stuff, I know it's very uncomfortable to just sit here and not have answers, but I do wonder if this stuff if nobody else is expanding, then maybe this stuff has to just kind of settle down for a little while.
And really today, with the Pac-12 statement, which was not a surprise, and really the alliance that was built up as if it was going to be like some major deal, which really is a kind of like, it depends on how you want to look at it. Yeah, it'd be nice to be involved in that. Nothing really happened, but it really affects nothing when it comes to the Big 12 survival or not. They could have been a part of the alliance. That doesn't mean anything other than schedules 3 to 5 or 7 years from now.
Yeah, you're right about that. And, there's also a perspective on, as much as it might be exciting to talk about, here's the members you could add to the Big 12 and, who adds value and what makes sense, for the future and stuff. I think there's still understanding among some ADs I talk to that, look, the unfortunate thing is that there is still a long runway to this. If Texas and Oklahoma stay through 25 because they just don't want to pay that exit penalty, then, they've got time to figure this out. And I know nobody wants to hear that, but, this is kind of the tough spot you're in where there's not a whole lot you can really kind of do right now to change the mood.
Max, I do want to ask you about, Hudson Card, although Sarkisian said that it's not official just yet, and Gary Bohannon, but is there like a next step now if you're the Big, or I guess if you're the Big 12, are you in a position now where if you are interested in expanding, you start that, or do you have to wait until Texas and Oklahoma are gone officially to be able to do that?
Yeah, that's one of the key things here that I just really have not gotten a straight answer on from people. There's some people that feel like, just in terms of the order of operations of all this, that keeping them in the conference as long as possible is in some ways viewed as an important piece of this, and that they don't, that there's a little bit of a fear here of like, if we panic and start making some big changes here, that's kind of what the two schools want. They want to get out of it. So there's a little bit of question to that, and just in terms of your TV deal and all that, you have to wait until they leave. So that is something that I think with the Pac-12 news today, like that's a great question you asked, and one that now the presidents and ADs really have to start chewing on that one.
All right, thank you very much.
What do you think of Gary Bohannon starting quarterback at Baylor, Max?
Oh, by the way, they're playing a week from Saturday. Yeah,
that was a total bluff on my part. I have no, I'm just kidding. No, I think it's. Do you guys think that's one where somebody's starting, 11 or 12 games there, or do you think that could potentially kind of go back and forth a little bit?
I talked about this. I was actually, remember, on the golf course when you called, you're getting ready to do a podcast, and I just felt like the needle was leaning his way. But I'm not going to – I hope for Gary's sake, because if it is, that means that's good for Baylor as well, and him. But I have no idea.
I don't think he had a massive amount of separation. I think that he's the guy for now, and then we'll see what happens. I'm not banking on him being just the guy though, for like the next couple seasons, from my vantage point at least.
And you guys know right now in 2021, kind of a weird position to be in is having 4 really good ones in your room.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
No,
We've had the transfer conversations already, and start thinking about all that. But yeah, I mean, it's good for Gary. But I definitely have been just saying, hey, if you're Blake Shapen or Jacob Zeno or Kyron Drones, you better still be ready, because we've seen Baylor's history at quarterback when it comes to injuries and all that too. And I don't think he's just cemented as the man from this point forward.
I know people always kind of you like to have that guy that can we develop someone into a 3-4 year starter? But I'm interested to see how this room shakes out, and I'm not saying that to question Bohannon. I know how highly Matt Rule's staff thought of him too when he came in, and they thought he'd have a super bright future at Baylor. So great to see him get his chance. And but yeah, I imagine the competition keeps going in that room, and I think you've got a couple really you've got a bunch of really interesting guys to potentially build around there if you're Dave Aranda.
No question. Max, thank you very much. One day, maybe we will just talk football.
Yeah, that'd be good.
Maybe just a little bit about football. That's Max.
Like next week, you're going to ask me for picks on games. I'm going to be like, who's playing who?
What conference are they in?
Hell, here's the problem with that. I don't know who's playing next week.
Yeah,
I know that you and I at 12 hope we see something different for the mighty Big Red, right? I mean, just a little bit, but I don't expect any change.
Oh, buddy. Who knows?
Yeah, thanks, Max.
The whole nation will be watching Nebraska football on Saturday, and that is a scary proposition.
In a game against two teams that no one really cares about other than their fan bases, and boy, have things changed. Thank you.
And Illinois kind of whipped them last year. All right, take care.
Beat them up pretty
Thanks,
good.
Max. Appreciate
Max Olson, theathletic.com. We'll take a break here.
That was interesting, though, to hear. I'm glad I was able to get his thoughts on the kind of the timeline now for the Big 12, as they're in a weird spot now, we can't really do anything until Texas and Oklahoma leave potentially, but so if you're the UCF fan base or again, any of the fan bases of the teams we mentioned, today's news is great news to you, I would think. You're like, hell yeah.
Was today's news bad for Texas and not that they have bad news, but that means that the conference didn't get two teams peeled away and
Well, I think your best hope if you were Texas and Oklahoma was that the Pac-12 would announce that they're adding at least two teams, if not more. And you would hope,
and then all hell breaks
your ultimate hope would be they'd add 4, and then the Big 12 is totally screwed, and they're not even able to maintain autonomy status. I think 4 would be the threshold for that, which they would be down to. So, I think you're breathing a little bit of sigh of relief if you're Bob Bowlesby. You're, maybe slightly annoyed if you're Oklahoma and Texas, but really it doesn't change anything for you. And you're going to leave when you're going to leave anyways. Whatever the Big 12's doing is not really preventing you one way or the other. It's just whenever they decide to write those checks or write it out. I mean, that's the two options in front of those schools. So, I think it's good news if you're the AAC, because if anything, you're going to have this talk now about, potential some of those teams moving up, or potentially, depending on how, wild this gets, the AAC poaching trying to poach the Big 12 through ESPN or what. Yeah, it's definitely not settled. That's for sure. But there is some good news and bad news to be had today.
So many of you, again, the poll now up to 551 of you in less than an hour. So many of you on the chat and text, and we have not been able to get to everybody. We'll try to do that a little bit in the 5 o'clock hour. Coming up next, longtime former college football offensive line coach John Grimes. He's retired. He's probably right now out in some wheat field or on his land in Arkansas with a bushwhacker and a gator and trying to clean things up. He'll join us to give us perspective from a college football's point of view about what the college football landscape is like. And this is 365 Sports on YouTube and Sikkim 365 Radio. The secret to living your best life is pizza. It's obvious, right? Golden crust made from scratch, 3 fresh signature cheeses, and the toppings, crispy, old world pepperoni. Save your Italian sausage and bacon. Called the Dream Team. Find everything you need to live your best life and more at Marco's Pizza. Owner Bob Mock has been delivering pizza since 2001. The proud owner of 4 locations in the Central Texas area around Waco, Belle Meade, China Spring, Woodway, and also soon to be the new location in Robinson on the southeast side of Waco. Also, we had 2 all-meat thin crust pizzas delivered right here, almost near the start of the show, from Marco's Pizza at the Belle Meade location. Pizza lovers get it.
1, 2. I'm in love with a man named Rudy. I'm okay with that. He knows exactly what I want. He keeps me coming back. He cooks breakfast, lunch, and dinner for me. Does the dishes too. I'm in love sure is easy to fall in love with Rudy's Tasty Oak Smoked Barbecue.
Next in line.
How did Edward Jones become one of the biggest financial service companies in the world? By not acting that way. Financial strategies, one-on-one advice, it's a big difference. And that's why Brad Wilson, your Edward Jones financial advisor, makes sense of investing. Experience the difference for yourself. Brad Wilson, 250 Sharon Drive in Woodway, 254-776-4337. Edward Jones, member SIPC.
Since its inception, Pickup Outfitters has remained politically neutral. We love trucks of every persuasion, not just red and blue ones. But people keep asking us where we stand, and for this one time, we're going to break our neutrality. We oppose any government intervention or legislation to end truck nudity. We believe in the American right to drive nude vehicles. We think it's disgusting, we fight it every place we can, and we want to end it, but we want to end it the right way, peaceably. Therefore, we call on Congress and President Biden to respect the rights of truck owners. Our founding fathers didn't own a truck, but if they did, I bet they would have put a bed cover and running boards on their truck. The right to keep and bear your truck the way you want is fundamental to the fabric of this nation, and we believe in that right. So we urge you to come and take it at Pickup Outfitters, 220 Lake Air Drive in Waco, on the web at createacommotion.com.
At Impact Research Institute, we can help you identify if you have non-alcoholic fatty liver disease and measure for liver stiffness or scarring. If you or a loved one has diabetes, high cholesterol, hypertension, obesity, or concerns about your liver health, Impact Research Institute may be able to help by providing liver health screenings quickly at no cost, physician counseling, and opportunities to qualify for clinical trials. Visit us at impactresearchtx.com for more.
After my first car accident, I feared the biggest damage would be to my wallet. I expected a mountain of bills and a long, drawn-out process. But my Texas Farm Bureau insurance agent was there when I needed her and helped me get back on my feet and in my car in no time. Instead of a hassle, I got reassurance and a quick recovery.
Stop by and see our agents at one of our 3 McLennan County locations.
Coverage and discounts are subject to qualifications and policy terms and may vary by situation.
Waco Regional Tennis and Fitness was built to help give you a chance to enjoy an elite tennis facility, but also to remain fit and reshape your body. And ahead of the curve with the explosion of interest in pickleball with instructors Joe Rosa and Jody Thurman and courts available. Like your body, Waco Regional Tennis and Fitness has gone through its own physical changes. Large flat screens stretched across the weight room with Wi-Fi available with their own app to enjoy news, business, weather, or sports. Beautiful sound of members working out, running, lifting, stretching, group exercise classes throughout each day. Personal trainers Christy London and Randall Corley. New look bar and lounge area with beer and wine with large flat screens. New touchless water fountains outside of each locker room, and both include shower, sauna, and whirlpool, and a world-class tennis courts facility and youth academy led by Pro Britt Coleman. Fitness and tennis merchandise and a tanning bed. I promise you'll look and feel better. You just need to walk through the front door. It's time to react today, not tomorrow, at Waco Regional Tennis and Fitness, Lake Shore Drive in Waco.
Welcome back to Sikkim 365 Radio.
The 4 o'clock hour is sponsored by Boozer's Jewelers, the wedding ring store, specializing in custom jewelry and repair, all in-house.
He has coached in a lot of places. He's retired now. John Grimes, A&M, Virginia Tech, Auburn, Arkansas. Missouri. He survived, even a grad assistant offensive line at Arkansas. He survived even being on a staff with Pat Collins, who I knew when he became the football coach at Longview High School in East Texas when he was at Northeast Louisiana. John Grimes joins Craig Smoak and David Smoak on Sikkim 365 Radio. How in the world did you survive Pat Collins?
Well, first of all, David, the name's JB.
Okay.
Hey, people don't recognize me as John.
All right.
I've been JB Grimes all my life. So I tell you what, we had some great times with Pat. We won a national championship together.
I know.
And I mean, we really that was early in my career where, when you won a game, it was wonderful. And when you lost, you just go back to the drawing board, and we had a great time.
So tell everybody what you just got off. What did you just?
I just got off my John Deere tractor, and I've been bush hogging all afternoon. You don't retire from something; you retire to something. A wise man taught me that a long time ago.
Yeah, you and I have talked a couple of different times that you have some land up in the Arkansas area, and you get on that thing. And is that kind of like your? For some going to fishing, or some like to play golf, or just relax a little bit, even though that can't be easy.
No, it's a hot job, but it's something that I enjoy doing. And, I've either been on a field or in a field my whole life. Mm-hmm. Okay. I mean, I was raised in a cotton field over in eastern Arkansas, and then I became a football coach or a football player. So I was on a field. And so I just kind of got back into the field again with this bush hog, and I'm having a great time with some of my projects that I'm doing on my land over here.
What are your thoughts? You have coached in the Big 12. You have coached in the SEC. You've coached in many places. What are your thoughts right now about the way college football is getting the landscape changes with Texas and Oklahoma whenever that time does come?
We're in an interesting time in college football, and right now, in my mind, a little bit the tail is wagging the dog, and it's going to be interesting to see what happens here in the next 2 or 3 years on how everyone handles the image and likeness issue that we have going right now. And everyone's going to handle it a little bit different. But what I see now happening in college football is 4, maybe 5, maybe super conferences that probably won't be in the NCAA. Okay. They will be an entity of themselves. And I see things changing. And the biggest dynamic of all, and something that I don't have to worry about right now, my name's Bennett and I'm not in it, is how you handle it within your own team. And that to me is going to be a big challenge for coaches right now.
Yeah, we talked to Dave Aranda a couple of weeks ago, and we asked him if any of this has been locker room discussion, and he said for most of his guys, like the seniors, it's not really that big of a deal, obviously. They're not going to be involved in this in one way or the other, but it seemed like most of them are focused on the season. But do you see that scenario, I guess especially if you're getting ready to play at Texas or in Oklahoma on your schedule this year, where that does become a bit of a distraction?
It could be. It could be. It's according to how you handle it, it's human nature with some kid that's probably playing extremely well. And I was an offensive line coach for 43 years and 41 of them in college football. And, that poor old offensive lineman, he's been up there grunting and fighting and biting and scratching and clawing. And he's not going to get a dime when this running back that he's blocking for may be making a pretty good paycheck. Mm-hmm. And it's going to be interesting to see how different coaches handle that scenario, okay? Because you've got a kid that's been fighting his rear end off and he's playing very well. And, hey, human nature, you may want to go in there and say, hey, where's mine? I just see so many things happening, so many things evolving right now with the transfer portal and those kind of things. It's going to be interesting to watch from afar. You
recruited for a long time. How would this is obviously better, right, to recruit players that you could actually give them these opportunities. You've been at bigger schools, state schools. Would this be better, or does it make it even more of a mess?
Well, here's what it amounts to, okay? In certain situations, okay, you're going to find a difference maker. There are only about 4 to 5 difference makers on every team. And when you recruit those kind of guys, it may become a bidding war. It may become a bidding war. And you get to the point where you're no longer selling your tradition, your academics, those kind of things may go to the wayside, and it comes down to money. And nobody that's been in college football today legally has ever done what's about to happen right now.
Mm-hmm.
So we're really in uncharted territory here.
Coach, you mentioned earlier the possibility, I think a lot of people have speculated about these power conferences and whether or not there is eventually a breakaway from the NCAA. You've spent time at power schools. You've also spent time at schools that are non-Power 5. How would you describe that gap and that discrepancy that only seems to be growing even larger now at this stage between the haves and the quote-unquote have-nots?
Well, it'll be the gap will never be bridged now. Okay, it will never be bridged. I've won as a college coach. We've won 7 championships in 6 different leagues. Okay, that during my career, and ranging all the way from the Southland Conference to the SEC and everything in between. And so, I've witnessed a lot of different scenarios in college football. But what's about to happen is the SEC, I think whatever the Pac-12 becomes, the Big Ten, whatever it becomes, and possibly the ACC, they will be a separate entity and will work under a different set of rules. That's the way I see it happening. Now, whether that's true or not, I don't know. And in recruiting, when you're recruiting players, there's the first thing that you have to sell is yourself. Okay? If you can't sell yourself, there's no mama or daddy that's going to let that kid go to that school. You have to sell yourself. But then in certain situations, you've got to sell, what can I do for you? Okay? And that is going to be the difference between the haves and the have-nots. It gets down to the dollar sign.
Yeah, there's no question. And you coached in the SEC, and as I mentioned before, the Big 12. Is there a difference? You've been there. You were at Auburn most recently. A&M, of course, has been in both. How much? Is it the defensive line? They've changed the offense, has kind of invaded the SEC with the wide open stuff that the Big 12 used to also people scoff at. They didn't play defense. What is the difference, JB?
Well, the biggest, when I was in the Big 12, that league was a very, very good defensive league. Okay, we won the Big 12 championship when I was at Texas A&M back in 1998.
Mm-hmm.
We had great defensive linemen. We had Dat Wynn, who was one of the greatest linebackers to ever play the game. That was truly the wrecking crew defense at Texas A&M.
Yep.
Okay. And we played great defense, as did a lot of other schools in the Big 12 at that time. But as things have evolved, the biggest thing, the difference to me between the Big 12 as it has become and the SEC are the line of scrimmage. Okay, and I'm talking about both sides of the line of scrimmage. That is different than what it is in the Big 12, or really perhaps any other league in the country. Right now.
And you're talking about the linemen like in the days, and again, you mentioned when the Big 12 played defense and the wrecking crew and R.C. Slocum and all that, but you're talking about like how Miami built their defense, or Oklahoma back in the day. That's what you're talking about now. That's not across the board, but kind of across the board.
Well, every time you play on a Saturday afternoon or Saturday night in the SEC, and it does not matter, okay, who you're playing with, except for perhaps maybe Vandy, all right? But there's going to be someone on defense, and especially in the defensive line, they're going to play in the NFL. I mean, and there may be multiple of those guys. And the same is true over there on the other side of the ball in the offensive line. Just about everybody in the country has great skill. The difference between these super conferences or the SEC right now is simply the line of scrimmage. And I hate to say that because, you know, I was an offensive line coach, and I've had some pretty good offensive lines, but it's all about that line of scrimmage in that league.
Yeah, they do seem like they're big, they're thick, and they can run.
They can run, man. Some of those guys have to choke themselves to sleep at night, guys. I'm telling you. I'm just telling you. I mean, there's some guys over there, some dudes.
JB, how much do you miss the game, or was it time for you just to kind of walk away?
It was time. You know, I had an opportunity to walk away there at Auburn. You know, and I had some other opportunities, but I had done it for 43 years, and you know, I just decided it's time. I was about to turn 65. I'm now 66, and I just felt like, you know, that it was time for me to walk away from it. And I walked away under my own terms. Hey, I may be the only guy in the history of Auburn football to walk away twice under his own terms, guys. I mean, you know, let's be perfectly honest here, you know, and you know, and I was able to do that. And as it turns out, with COVID and all the things that are happening right now, it was a great decision on my part.
Well, I don't know, man. You had to deal with the Southeastern SEC defensive lineman, and now you're dealing with a big bush hog. A John Deere tractor, I think, is also just like the SEC lineman. Big, thick, strong, and can move, right?
Yeah, exactly. And it's got great hydraulics, man.
Hey,
don't forget that.
I want one other thing. You did know Jeff Grimes, who's now Baylor's offensive coordinator. You did know him, right, when he was at A&M early on? Yeah. What did you know about him back then?
Oh, he was a heck of a young coach at that time. You know, I came in the spring of 1998. We'd just left Virginia Tech. We'd won 2 Big East championships. And that's another great story, you know, when you know, with Virginia Tech and everything. But I decided to get my family back closer to Arkansas and moved down there to Texas A&M. And I went in there as the offensive line coach, and I had a young GA by the name of Jeff Grimes. Okay, Well, my name is JB Grimes, and he still calls me uncle. All right? Yeah. But he was my graduate assistant for the spring of 1998, and he really did a great job for me. Okay, and then he went on and he's since advanced his career. We did not go through the season together, but I could tell at that particular time that this guy was a diamond. You know, a big time guy, and a wonderful person. Okay, Baylor's got him a great one right there.
Thank you very much, JB. Coach Grimes, enjoy that evening, the sun eventually setting, and you have a chance to kind of chill out and decompress and enjoy maybe a cold one, huh?
Hey, that may be in my future.
Yeah, thank you, JB Grimes. All right, he's
all right, guys.
Yes, sir. Arkansas, A&M, Auburn, around the country, Missouri, Virginia Tech. He's been at some huge schools and gives us kind of a perspective. And what he says is that those athletes and the speed and who they are on the defensive line seems to be always what appears to be the difference week in and week out.
Yeah, I mean, he's not the first person I've heard say that, but it just validates, you know, all the other times that I've heard that, you know, the major difference that comes with the SEC are those linemen on both sides of the ball. And I was just sitting there thinking, you know, when we were talking to Phil Bennett last year each week before he took that North Texas DC job in January or whenever it was, you know, all these topics that we had to talk to him about as somebody who was in the game for decades and had seen it all, but was now having to go back into the game and deal with name, image, likeness. Although at North Texas, I'm not sure they're having to do a whole lot with that, but still, it's still a thing. And deal with the transfer portal, which is a major thing, and deal with the bonus year, and deal with, I'm sure somebody like Coach Grimes is just loving the fact that he's not in the mix. You know what I mean? I'm sure that pull to football is always there and never quite goes away. But if you were in the game for a long time and it was time for you to go, now's a pretty good time to go if you're a veteran coach like Coach Grimes is.
You see a lot of high school coaches moving into administration. A lot of that has to do with their retirement, the average of your top 3 salaries. But you also see coaches getting out of the business just because of the way things are, because of sometimes the way you have to deal with parents differently than back in the day. To each his own on whoever's opinion thinks is right. And in college football, with all that's going on, may not be a bad time to get away unless you're ready. Mac Brown's a great recruiter, always was. We mentioned yesterday the 5-star player in his own state. But one of the things at times it can do is wear you down. You really get tired of recruiting. And if you're not full throttle, hair on fire, and all the things that go with it, it can absolutely be tough to do. But that's the lifeblood of what you do as a coach in the college level. All right, when we come back, we continue. We'll have Craig's Off the Radar, Mickey Spagnola, DallasCowboys.com, just after 5. And we have to get to a lot of your text and also chat comments because there are dozens upon dozens of them.
I want to hear from the people on what they think about the announcement today by the Pac-12. I'd like to know from Big 12 members, of the 8 Big 12 members, do you feel like relief, or is today a disappointment? Is today make you even more nervous about the future? Do you think this is what are your thoughts? Because, part of me, as somebody who just covers Baylor, I didn't go to Baylor, but I've covered them now for several years. I want them to be at the highest level they can possibly be because that's good for me. Selfishly, I didn't sign up to cover a D3 team. If I wanted to do that, I'd go down the road to Belton and cover Mary Hardin Baylor, right? But I signed up to watch a Power 5 level Big 12 team, and that's what I hope they remain selfishly, because the alternative is everything across the board goes down a level. But so today, in hearing that Oklahoma State and Texas Tech or Kansas aren't going to the Pac-12 for right now, and they're a big emphasis on right now, but that does at least make me breathe a little bit easier of okay, right now they kind of have no choice but to stick together. But I also know that this is not over. So I'm curious of what Big 12 fans, if there's relief, is there just more nervousness, what?
All right, light them up. Here we go. Answer the question Craig just asked you, and we'd love to get your feedback because a lot of you continue to say, what about these teams? And we'll take all of them as we can. Try to get to all of them. I can tell you right now we can't because you have been explosive today. We have to get to Craig's Off the Radar. Mickey, a little bit after 5 o'clock. You got 10 seconds?
We had a super chat earlier, and we couldn't find who wrote it or what your message was, and we definitely will read off super chats because if you're going to take the time to donate $1 or $5 or $10 or whatever, we want to answer that question. So I'm not sure how we could track that back down, but we do apologize.
Yeah, we will try to get to those when we can. This is Sikkim 365 Radio.
Hi, Mark Stewart here with Bird Colgin Ford. Score big with Midway Football and Ford trucks. It's time to catch football fever and find the perfect Ford truck for your next tailgating party. The Ford F-150 has been America's #1 selling truck for 44 years, and Bird Colgin Ford has the perfect truck for you to drive to your next football game. Enjoy the game. Enjoy the ride. Enjoy the many truck choices at Bird Colgin Ford. Visit us anytime at bkford.com, making buying your next Ford simple at BK Ford.
Boozers is the wedding ring store and more. If you're ready to get engaged or already married and want to upgrade your wife's ring for a special anniversary, Boozers is the place to go. With the largest selection of premier quality diamond engagement rings and wedding rings in Central Texas. They have 7 cases with over 300 styles of rings from top designers like Natalie Kay. Choose from yellow, white, or rose gold, plus beautiful top quality loose diamonds. With an in-house jewelry, they can also custom make anything you want. Bring in a picture or drawing and let Boozers create your one-of-a-kind pendant or ring. They can even use some of your old gold and diamond jewelry to create something new. At Boozers, you'll find a great selection of quality timepieces, and Boozers is the place for expert watch maintenance and repairs too. They specialize in expert Rolex watch repair for fine jewelry, watches, custom work, and more. Go to Boozers on Valley Mills and Lake Air Drive in Waco.
Boozers, the wedding ring store and more. With so many companies and policies out there, it gets so confusing shopping for insurance, and I never know if I'm getting the policy that's right for me. Luckily, I met the team at the Niche Group Insurance Agency. With the Niche Group, you can go to one company and get access to coverage options from many insurance carriers, and you get to speak to a real person about your specific coverage needs. With the Niche Group, I know I'm getting the right coverage at the right price. If you need insurance, talk to the experts at the Niche Group at 1-800-258-8302.
Baylor Scott and White Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics, the team physicians for Baylor Athletics, diagnosing and treating all sports-related injuries, including concussions. These specialists also provide orthopedic services for athletes and non-athletes alike, whether it's knee or shoulder pain, hand or wrist injury, orthopedic spine care, and even an arthritis and total joint clinic. Trust the doctors Baylor Athletics trusts. Baylor Scott and White Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics wants to get you back in the game.
You want to know why Stonewood Dental is so successful? Listen to what happy customers have to say.
It's pleasant. It's different than any other dentist office. I really feel like they care. And it's not that you're here for 2 hours waiting on someone to take care of you. It's quick and easy, and I bring my kids, and my kids love being here too. They really love the treasure box. Staff is really nice and accommodating, real friendly. You feel more like home. It's not sterile looking. Everybody has their own personalized rooms with decorations and decor, and they'll even have a blanket for you when it's cold. I've recommended people to actually come here, and they are patients now. I really love it here. It feels like family.
Learn more, stonewood-dental.com.
Life is back on, sports bettors, and BetUS has your NBA, NHL, Major League Baseball, UFC, PGA, and yes, NFL betting lines up for their 27th year and live betting on all of it. Log into BetUS.com or call 800-792-3887. That's 800-79-BETUS. BetUS for 125% bonuses with promo code SICK'EM125. Customer service pros are ready to get your phone, social, and online sports betting kickoff started now. Play with the proven mainstay in the industry. BetUS. You bet, you win, you get paid. BetUS.com. Use promo code SICK'EM125.
Welcome back to Sick'em 365 Radio. It's time for Craig Smoak's Off the Radar. Brought to you by Pickup Outfitters. Since 1997, we've been outfitting trucks, SUVs, and vans at 220 Lake Air Drive or createacommotion.com.
All right, welcome back to Sick'em 365 Radio. Craig Smoak, David Smoak, full crew behind the scenes as well. Shout out to them for doing a great job. Here we take a look at some stories that don't have anything to do really with the college football realignment scenarios going on right now. We spend so much of our time talking about that. So here's a little look outside of the college football box. You did watch that drone shot. I think you mentioned it yesterday.
Amazing.
The Cowboys
It's one of my favorite things I've seen in a long time.
Yeah, so now that everybody was kind of blown away by that, they've gone a little bit more in-depth to the process. I don't know if you maybe saw a video a few months ago, but there was a bowling alley in Minneapolis, and they did a drone video, and the drone went through like the back of the pins and showed you like the machines that were working behind it, and it flew through the back where they racked the pins and all that, and it flew back into where people were throwing. That's where the Cowboys got the idea. And I remember actually seeing that video, the bowling alley one, and so it doesn't surprise me. That was a really cool video when I saw it, so it doesn't surprise me that it ended up inspiring people. And it just so happened it inspired the crew over at Hard Knocks. Already 2 million views it had 2 million views on Twitter within 18 hours of being posted. So they're just getting a lot of love for this. The drone pilot was talking about how this all happened. They had seen the video of the bowling alley back in March and came up with the concept. Went all the way, the idea, to NFL Film headquarters in New Jersey, and they have used drone technology on a lot of projects as well, taking a lot of pictures through it. So they filmed some stuff in Frisco earlier this month while the team was still in Oxnard, California, and then they just went through the process, and apparently they had, I think it was 15 takes, and they didn't nail it to the 15th take. They had issues.
How many of them were destroyed during that?
I don't know if drones were destroyed, but probably like flying through it, by a statue, you clip it or something.
Yeah.
I don't know, but apparently it just took them every single opportunity that they had to be able to get that done. They started filming at 6:45. They had a 3-hour and 15-minute window. They had to be out by 10 a.m. because the Star was going to have a boxing event that day. There were 12-mile-per-hour winds. They got all the way up to 16. So, yeah, there was just a lot of drama in trying to get this done. But Weber, who was behind the scenes, estimated that 15 takes were to be done, and the final one is the one that made the show. So
somebody had that was part of the conversation on the thread was how many drones took it on the chin.
Yeah, I don't know how sturdy or those things are, if they can clip something and be okay or not. But I didn't see anything about drone wrecks happening or having to use replacements. But I'm sure they had some on standby. But I wonder what would have happened if they didn't nail it on take 15. He just chop pieces together.
It kind of lays on the floor.
I guess we just never see that really cool shot. But as somebody who saw that bowling alley video, I think it's awesome that's what inspired the Cowboys to pull that off. Globe Life Park in Arlington, they announced this a couple days ago. They are renaming the stadium. It's going to be Choctaw Stadium.
Where's this?
The ballpark in Arlington.
Really?
Choctaw Stadium,
Globe Life.
Globe Life Park in Arlington will now be known as Choctaw Stadium. Multi-year agreement with Choctaw Casinos and Resorts to rename Globe Life Park. They said the venue will be called Choctaw Stadium going forward and will be the host of a number of events in the days and months to come. They're going to have pro soccer and Major League Rugby and all that kind of stuff as well. It will now be known as Choctaw Stadium. I never really liked the name Globe Life Park, so, Choctaw. Choctaw's cool, I guess.
One of those things that the ballpark in Arlington was a great name. It just seemed like it fit, and it was a beautiful place. And then I know that you got to have money, and everyone wants to attach a sponsorship. At some point, you wonder, is McLean? I would think Drayton McLean loves the fact his name's on the stadium, but if they could get an extra $1 million a year from somebody, I'm sure he would be fine if it was named after an airline or whatever would fit for Baylor. I don't know, but okay.
Yeah, that's owned and operated by the Choctaw Nation of Oklahoma, the third largest Native American nation in the U.S., close to 200,000 tribal members and 10,000 employees over at Choctaw Casinos and Resorts. So, now Choctaw Stadium, just thought that was a little bit of interest. Oklahoma dipped into the transfer portal, and they signed some guys this offseason, but a report from OU Daily is saying that former LSU running back Trey Bradford is no longer with the Oklahoma football team. He was at LSU last year. He had played in a handful of games, made the announcement that he was switching over to Oklahoma, and I don't have any word just yet on the reasoning behind this, but very odd to be this close to the season, have a guy who came in during the offseason and then to no longer be on the team according to that report. So need to figure out what exactly happened there, because that's just very odd timing.
They have lost so many running backs.
Their running back room, man.
But they do have two great ones. In Gray from Tennessee, the transfer, and Kennedy Brooks, who opted out last year, who's a stud running back, too, from Mansfield.
Yeah, Austin Curtright of the Oklahoma Daily had reported that Bradford had missed the past two practices. So now, you mentioned they've got Kennedy Brooks, who is great, and it should be fantastic after a year away. Eric Gray, who we know is really good as well. But the problem here is that those are their only two scholarship running backs. According to OU Daily, they're the only two scholarship running backs on the Oklahoma roster are Eric Gray and Kennedy Brooks, and I'm sure if that's incorrect, somebody will correct me, but that's what they said.
That's
so
crazy.
It's not ideal. That's not ideal at all. Trading card business. The card business has been on fire for the last few months, especially when everybody was locked down. We told you just in the last Off the Radar that Fanatics had signed the Major League Baseball rights contract, and so Fanatics was now going to be taking over for Topps, who had it for decades. And Fanatics has got themselves a little bit of a monopoly now because they already had the NBA and the NBPA. Now they added Major League Baseball, and it was announced yesterday that the NFL Players Association will be leaving the Panini brand and signing a 20-year contract for trading cards with Fanatics. So they join the NFL or the Major League Baseball and MLB Players Association, as well as the NBA and NBA Players Association. They've now got the 3 biggest brands on board, and they are all under the Fanatics trading card banner. So
I can't keep up with it.
Yeah, I mean it's just news in the trading card business. So Topps done in baseball, Panini now done in football, and Fanatics is going to have free reign over all of it. The Field of 68 is like a little podcast network, and I don't follow a ton of stuff. I know a ton about them.
Great basketball site.
Yeah, very good basketball site. Ashley Hodge, I know from our site, and also Jason King do
Jeff
work with them.
Goodman, Rob Dowster, that they kind of founded that thing.
Yeah, so now they're doing a football version where there was basketball was the Field of 68. Now they're doing a Field of 12. That's a football version, apparently. But the reason why I bring it up is because one of the podcasts that they announced that they are launching, amongst a slew of them, is the Trevor and Bryce Show. It'll be starring former Oklahoma and A&M quarterback Trevor Knight and former Baylor quarterback Bryce Petty. Cool. They're going to have a podcast together.
Good for them. And they will be good. I think both. Remember the tie-in with those two? Trevor Knight in a game where Baylor went to Oklahoma and hammered OU. It was one of the worst days for Bob Stoops at home, and Baylor embarrassed them. Trevor Knight got hurt in that game, remember, early, and he and Bryce Petty had a pretty good connection. And then Petty, of course, was the quarterback, and they went on to win the Big 12 title.
Yeah, I remember them being buddies and talking well about each other, but now they're going to be podcast partners as well. So congrats to Bryce Petty and to Trevor Knight on that deal. I know you're not paying a lot of attention to baseball right now because, why would we, though? I mean, both of us are Rangers fans. If you're an Astros fan, I'm sure you're loving it.
I'm not paying attention to them. You're
right.
Not
not paying attention to the Rangers, but there is plenty of good stuff going on in Major League Baseball. A big highlight from yesterday, the Orioles are not going to make history as the worst team of all time in baseball history. Well, they are still, but they were losers in 19 straight games entering yesterday, too short of the all-time losing streak skid in American League history, but they were able to get a win, and they did it against Shohei Ohtani. Wow. So they were able to avoid the 20th straight loss. Got a 10-6 win, had scored 5 runs in the bottom of the 8th, and they end the streak. So they will not be going for the AL record of 21 straight losses.
That's unbelievable. Can you imagine how much do you even want to get up in the morning? Do you want to go to the ballpark?
If you're an Orioles player,
yeah,
I'd probably look at my bank account and say, yes, I do. But outside of that, I just go for my love of baseball, and that would be about all I would really have, quite frankly. And final note for you, coming up this weekend, this is very much off the college football radar, but old Jake Paul is going to be back in action, YouTube star. He's going to be taking on former UFC standout and champion Tyrone Woodley in the main event, cruiserweight boxing match at 8 rounds. It'll be an 8-round matchup. That'll be this, let's see, 27, 28, 29th. That's Sunday, I do believe, at Rocket Mortgage Fieldhouse in Cleveland, Ohio. It'll be on Showtime pay-per-view. I don't care about the Paul brothers at all. I respect their hustle. Don't know enough about them to respect too much anything else. But I give them a lot of credit for the way that they market themselves and the way that they've been able to actually make this something that, people in those circles, I'm not necessarily talking about it with my guys and everything, but I do know there is obviously a market for it. That's why the Paul brothers keep getting these fights, and that's why there's these former UFC guys that are lining up. So we've seen where Ben Askren, a former UFC guy, just went in there and embarrassed himself. But Tyrone Woodley, I'm actually interested to see how Tyrone Woodley fights because he could do some damage. But it is boxing. It's not mixed martial arts. So the next freak show fight coming up this weekend featuring one of the Paul brothers. And that's some things that are off the radar.
Gets to be, I know all they could hammer me and knock me on my you-know-what and probably kill me. But I'm so sick of the stuff, the crossovers. It's not being get off my lawn. It's just
sounds a little like that, but I understand.
People are good enough to just beat their ass. If someone comes in that shouldn't be in the ring and someone's strong enough, you could just pick and choose these fights and make millions. Good for them. Well, I'm not against them. It's just to me for the integrity of the sport.
It's not great for boxing. I feel like just the pureness of the sport. But then again, it's boxing. There's not a lot of purity left in it with the way that things are politicked and finagled behind the scenes. But they will get an audience not only because the Paul brothers have a big audience of people that we don't really probably interact with too much, but they still have one, and there is the pull for people who don't like them that they want to see these guys get knocked the blank out, and they're hoping that Tyrone Woodley's the one to do that because nobody's done it so far. But we will see. That's coming up this weekend. Like I said, those are some things that are off the radar.
All right, I'm texting Mickey right now, and we were going to have him on in a little bit. We're going to be able to come back and take calls, text, and chats. Maybe Mickey later in the hour, 5:30 or so that gives us a chance to go back and catch up. Here is the number to call. The question is this. If you're a fan among the remaining 8 teams in the Big 12, your thoughts and reactions today where the Pac-12 said they would not expand, I'm not surprised. Do you somehow look at that as good news, bad news, or both? And if you're not a fan of the remaining 8, continue to give us some of the feedback that some of you have. A lot of it's on the Big 12. A lot of it is, 80% are what teams they should go after and attach themselves to or who should be interested. And that's great because that's how we started this explosion on YouTube on 365 Sports. This is Sikkim 365 Radio.
Richard Carr, Buick GMC Cadillac. They've got the summer savings event going on right now over at Richard Carr. And as always, they are in the customer service business. You can go by the lot right now and check out all their great deals, or you can get in contact with Richard Carr, and they will get the deals over to you. They will get a test drive over to you to try and make a deal. Right now, they've got a lot of different models and a lot of different sales going on. Right now, with the Cadillacs, you can find the right Cadillac for you over at Richard Carr, whether it's a smooth and powerful CT4 sedan, started at only $33,395. They've also got the XT4, XT5, and XT6 lineup of SUVs in the style and size to fit your lifestyle. And the Cadillacs are just great machines, advanced technology, exceptional agility, and responsive power. It'll bring a face to your smile, or bring a smile to your face on every drive. You can also get back on the road with space, safety, and luxury in a Buick. Right now, well-qualified buyers get 0% financing for 72 months on most 2021 Buick SUVs. And Richard Carr is also loaded with premium pre-owned cars and trucks, all of them priced to move, multiple car and truck varieties. And each pre-owned vehicle goes through a 172-point inspection before it ever hits the lot with dozens of lenders. Richard Carr says yes when others say no. 100% credit approval is always the goal. And if you're here in the greater Waco area, then Richard Carr is your local hometown dealership. Give them a chance to earn your business with great prices, free oil changes on new cars and trucks, and superior service after the sale. So come by the dealership and take a test drive, or once again, get in contact with them and they can set up bringing a test drive to you. It's a summer savings event going on all month at Richard Carr, and they are owned, operated, and run by loyal and proud Baylor Bears.
Hi, Mark.
At Baylor University, students can shine in their own way. Or should we say their own ways? Because there's no limit to the ways Baylor students make the world a brighter place. Whether they're leading a student organization or following a higher calling, getting advice from faculty, or taking part in world-class research, pursuing their dreams, or working toward their dream job, students find their place to shine at Baylor, where lights shine bright.
At Ideal MRI, we feel blessed to be part of the Waco community. We're a small family business here in Central Texas. At times like this, the cost of healthcare has never been more important. And unfortunately, significant illnesses and injuries still occur. And that's why Ideal MRI is open and here to serve you through this difficult time. So if you need an MRI, ask your doctor about Ideal MRI. You can schedule online in minutes at idealmri.com or call 833-IDEAL-MRI.
Stepping into a new pair of boots is great, but stepping into the boots of a U.S. Army officer can also add confidence and leadership skills to your son or daughter's career path. There are more than 150 occupational specialties to help them find the best fit for their future. See all the things your son or daughter can achieve in our boots at GoArmy.com. U.S. Army Waco Recruiting Company, 254-598-8131 or 254-776-1543.
Let
Camille Johnson Realtors guide you seamlessly through the process of buying your dream home or selling your current one. Commercial, farm and ranch, or residential, Camille Johnson Realtors can smoothly and successfully lead you through any transaction. With a team of 28 experienced agents who are excited about serving you, Camille Johnson Realtors services the entire greater Waco area. If you're in the market to buy or sell, contact Camille Johnson Realtors, 104 Midway Center in Woodway, or find them online at www.camillejohnson.com. Camille Johnson Realtors, elegant, charming, warm. Welcome home.
Don's Humidor, your home with a 48-foot walk-in humidor with the elite cigar brands from around the world, including the #1 cigar of the year, Aging Room Cuatro Nicaragua. Plus, they have the great brands like Macanudo and Artur Fuente, Rocky Patel, Aston, and so much more. CBD, great for sore muscles, aches and pains, sleep, Vita Dreams, and anxiety, mild depression, general health and wellness. Their staff very knowledgeable on the subject. If anyone is curious about CBD, ask Carol and Ashley. Don's Humidor in the Townwood Shopping Center off Valley Mills in Waco.
It takes time to reach goals. It's a truth that applies to more than sports. It goes for your financial goals as well. You work hard for your money, and you deserve an investment strategy that lines up with your game plan. And Tom Albers, your Edward Jones financial advisor, can help. If your financial investments aren't putting forth the effort you desire, stop by today for a financial review. Tom Albers, 4301 Lakeshore Drive, 254-776-7605. Edward Jones, member SIPC.
Three Nations Brewing Company has 16 different beers on draft with a new beer every Friday. It also offers 2 air-conditioned tap rooms, a large indoor beer hall, a second-floor mezzanine offering a great overview of the brewing company and equipment and patio where you can relax under the shade. Plus, you can now experience the new Three Nations Beer Garden Grill on our shaded patio with socially distanced seating for your enjoyment. Grab a cold beer and enjoy a bite from our freshly prepared and delicious menu. Street tacos, quesadillas, freshly cooked burgers and dogs and veggie burgers too. State Fair tornado fries, nachos, and so much more, all prepared and cooked on site. So come visit the award-winning Three Nations Brewing Company on East Vandergrift off I-35 in Carrollton.
Welcome back to Sikkim 365 Radio.
Looking to the end zone. It's got to be a touchdown.
The 5 o'clock hour is brought to you by Edward Jones and financial advisor Cam Heathcott. Edward Jones, making sense of investing.
Now, here's David Smoak and Craig Smoak.
All right, I'm going to try to get through as many of these. There are dozens of text messages, maybe a couple of hundred chat room comments. Phone lines are open. We're not going to respond to every single one of these that we read, but we want to get some of them out there if we can. The 813, again, back to realignment. USF, UCF, Cincinnati, Houston. Of all those, USF may be the worst football program of the group at the moment, but their ceiling is incredibly high. Of course, we know they're in Tampa.
Yeah, USF hadn't been brought up a whole lot. No. They do have Tampa, but I don't think you'd want to bring in UCF and USF. I wouldn't think so unless you're expanding
those two may not want to do that.
Yeah, and they probably wouldn't want to do that. I mean, they would have nothing unique if they were both in there together. So yeah, I would think that if anything, they'd be battling each other, and UCF would be my pick.
From the 214, when we mentioned earlier all of the tragedy today in the Middle East. And some were like, hey, how can you do a talk show when that's going on? Sometimes a talk show might allow you.
I mean,
I know. I personally am grateful. No political discourse. Tired of it. Enjoy a mental break with sports chat. Keep up the great words. Thanks from the 214. From Daniel, I would go get UCF and Brigham Young immediately. Maybe the next year get Cincinnati and Memphis. If you want to go to 16, there are other options from Houston to Boise State and SMU. From the 913, the inventory of games is important to consider too. All at only 8 teams, the Big 12 only has 28 conference games to sell their inventory. How would networks view this? I never thought of it that way.
Yeah, well, for right now, they're just banking on the fact they've still got the Texas and Oklahoma games for the foreseeable future until they officially depart for the SEC. So it's not something that they have to – I mean, definitely it's something they have to worry about right now and plan for right now, but they're still at least getting that Texas-Oklahoma money for the time being.
If the expansion had happened in 16, teams like UCF recruiting as a Power 5 for the last few years, and others like Memphis, Cincinnati could have already had the Big 12 in a stronger position. We've looked back at that, and I wasn't against any expansion at the time. That's from the 4-2-3. The 3-0-3, Pac-12 is not expanding. Could it be they may not want to tamper with the Big 12 as long as Texas and Oklahoma are members, and then if they leave, then reconsider?
Well, the way Heather Dinich was putting it earlier, the reason they didn't expand into the Big 12, or at least the way she was framing it, and look, no disrespect to her, but often they are parroting, what people want them to say, but her whole message was like they basically allowed the Big 12 to stay together by not poaching any of their teams. But I think everybody knows that the Pac-12, said what they said today, but I don't think that closes the door entirely on them doing something in the future, potentially, or anybody else doing something in the future. I do think it steadies the water sort of, kind of, but I think there's still a lot of submarines under the surface.
It was just a few months ago when they were the ones at the bottom of the barrel, so things can change. Paul said bring on Gonzaga basketball, Navy football, 813.
That was talked about, though, with the Big 12. Their options are, if you were a Baylor or somebody that you got left out in the cold, that maybe you would find solace in being a football member in the AC and then, be a basketball member in another conference.
813, if you put Navy in the Big 12 as a football-only member, then how about Wichita State in basketball? From Girl Friday, what's to keep the Big 12 from poaching schools from other conferences? Get a Big 12 commissioner with some balls. Takes the stance of, okay, we'll play this game and then get the invites out to Brigham Young and others.
Yeah, I don't know that anything's stopping them other than, the conversation we had with Max earlier. And that's why I asked about, can they still go about adding teams if they don't know what's going to happen with Oklahoma and Texas in the next few years? All this happens, and Oklahoma and Texas still have the wild card in this with their exits. So I don't know how that works on whether you can add now or you do have to wait for whenever they do finally exit this year or at the end of 2025 or sometime in between.
We might have Mac next Tuesday. We can ask him that. This is from the 318 Louisiana, Shreveport area. Should the Big 12 reach out to Arkansas State, Louisiana, Lafayette?
No.
With all due respect, UL Monroe, I like a lot of those schools. He does have UCF and Memphis here. That's not going to move the needle. It's not disrespectful. It's just those schools, New Mexico and New Mexico State. We had the caller earlier. We love the calls and all that, but there are some that, with all due respect, just like some of the remaining 8, if not all of them, don't move the needle for some of the other conferences right now.
I will be interested, if this is in fact the next swing of realignment, and then there's, let's say a breaking off away from the NCAA or whatever the case may be. But if you're some of these schools, I can only imagine how nervous you must be right now as a Memphis fan or a Cincy fan or whatever. Like, look, nothing may change and you just remain where you are. But there is like this little gap of light right now that you could potentially reach out and move up a step. But if you don't make it this time in realignment, when does that time come again? You know what I mean?
Like it does seem to be a different level.
Yeah.
From the 513, Joe from Cincinnati. Hey, the University of Cincinnati has an enrollment of nearly 47,000, not a small school. I'm all for them being one of those that you have at the table as a possibility. The 208, I think so many people forget the Brigham Young TCU rivalry in the old Mountain West. I know it was short, but it was electric. As a Brigham Young fan, I want BYU TCU live again. Brigham Young should be the first team added to the Big 12. And then go ahead.
They'd have to figure out some issues. The not playing on Sunday thing for certain sports would, obviously be a hurdle, because that's been brought up as a hurdle in every single mention of BYU and every article I've read about BYU and them jumping to another conference. So that would have to get. I'm sure there would be other things that would have to get sorted out. But I'd say they're definitely. If I'm just projecting and imagining what's going through Bob Bowlesby's head or whoever's involved, BYU's got to be near or at the top of the list.
From the 407, in your opinion, what are the 4 programs, if in fact they were to expand? I'll name 4. Craig, you can go anywhere else. Brigham Young, UCF, Memphis, and Cincinnati.
I think that would probably be my 4 too. Houston, I would be having a bit of an eye on, because again, you don't necessarily want them, further watering down the state of Texas with another Power 5 school in the state of Texas. But at the same time, if they're a better option,
you may not be a Power 5 school yourself.
Yeah, you might not be one yourself, and they might be in the long run. I mean, I mentioned that Pac-12 article earlier on Houston being an ideal candidate if they are to expand in the future. So if you're the Big 12, you might want to cut that off at the pass. And so that would be 5 teams, and I don't know who I would boot for Houston to replace, because I like all the ones that you mentioned, and I would like to see them in the Big 12.
469 has different pods, including San Diego State, UNLV, Brigham Young, Boise State, and then others that include those schools from the Big 12. And one of the pods would be Texas, the schools from Texas, TCU, Tech, Baylor, and Houston. The 785, money from Oklahoma and Texas if they left at the same time or a year later. Oh, I'm sorry. Hey, guys, Elias from Manhattan. If the Big 12 were to add 4 teams as soon as possible, as early as next year, would the conference still get the buyout money? We don't know the exact specific legalities of that, and we're working on that right now.
Yeah, I'm not sure how that timeline would work, and Max Olson didn't know either, as far as adding while not subtracting. The subtracting seems like it would probably have to happen first, and you'd have to have a firm date, because what comes into play is those teams would then have to notify their conference that they're intending on leaving.
In 18 months or whatever the number is.
And then who knows, I don't know what the exact timeline is that you have to inform them 18 months ahead of time is what some have dealt with, and there's the buyout of your role in that conference that could be negotiated. It's like there's all that would have to come into play as well, which makes this whole timeline just very confusing on, when you could add and then how long that would take and so on and so forth.
580, regardless of what happens, this is a dark day for the remaining 8. The loss of revenue means hardworking people will lose their jobs, kids will lose scholarships, not to mention local economies take a hit. All right, go to the calls. Armstrong, who do we have?
We have Owen from Franklin County, Virginia.
All right, Owen, thanks for your call from Virginia. Thanks for your time on Sikkim 365 Radio.
Hey, thank y'all. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
But what I want to talk about is, I think that the reason a lot of these 8 remaining teams in the Big 12 have not as much value as what other conferences are saying is because they just let Oklahoma kind of run all over them and run the show for the past 6 years. So, my thing is there are no divisions in the Big 12. So is it just because the Big 12 has beat up all these teams, have beat up on each other the past 6 years or 10 years, that they don't look that attractive because they're not in another conference, or is it just because Oklahoma has run all over them for the past 6 years, or is it kind of a combination of both?
There's no divisions because there's only 10 teams.
Yeah, that's why they do that.
They had to do that so everyone's playing each other, which makes it much more of a difficult schedule, even though some conferences will argue against that. You play everybody every year. There are no, you skip around for 4 years without playing somebody else. As far as Oklahoma, they're just damn good. Baylor gave them a run 2 years ago, but Oklahoma came back from 28-3 or whatever and won the game in Waco. It was a great game. Then they won the Big 12 title 3 weeks or so later. TCU, Baylor, Oklahoma State, Iowa State have made runs, but it's just they've been better across the board than everybody else in the conference year in and year out.
Look, one reason why I think people fall back for those who are fans of the most tradition-rich schools is because that's something that nobody can ever really replicate. Like, if you weren't, it's like there's a lot of schools who were successful back in like the 50s and the 60s and the 70s, and a lot of these Big 12 schools, like TCU, had some success back in the day. They had a Heisman winner back in the day, but I think they've probably been the most relevant they've ever been the last decade or two. Baylor, same thing, most relevant they've ever been in football by a long shot since the old Grant Taft days. I just think it's small markets. It's schools that don't have a lot of history or tradition-rich history, and they can't compete with Oklahoma's World War II national championships and their 7,500 All-Americans and all of that. It's just schools that don't match up that way and never really did. And they started to make some progress, and it would have been really interesting to see if Art Briles wouldn't have screwed up, and I know that's a big if or whatever, but the trajectory that Baylor was on at that time, they were going to be a playoff team.
They had won back-to-back Big 12 titles, and they had their best recruiting class coming in 16, and of course we know that was rated, and 15's team was really, really good, except the quarterbacks were hurt. That's part of the game, we get it, but they were about to reel off 6 to 8 to 10 years of being right there in the top 10 or among the top 10. Not every year, but they were about to roll. Yeah, no, they were rolling.
Yeah, I mean, they were just shooting straight upwards, and TCU was feeding off of that, I think, as well. That's why that rivalry got so bitter and personal. And I'll always wonder now with the Big 12 in flux like it is, if that didn't happen and Baylor stayed on the trajectory that they were, and I think TCU probably would have somehow found a way to be even better than they were.
They would
the
have
last
pushed each other to better.
Exactly. Yeah. And then, I know that Texas and Oklahoma wouldn't have been satisfied with seeing little old Baylor and TCU continue year after year to be at the top, and just everybody would have pushed everybody. But, I mean, that's obviously a big what if that we'll never know the answer to, but it makes me wonder if they would have been more active, more involved in championships, more money being passed around. Maybe that would have made a difference, but we never got to see that. And probably not in the long run, because Oklahoma and Texas would have always wanted to go to the SEC no matter what.
Here's a pay chat to, again, I think it's Kukai
Super
Cartel,
Chat.
Super Chat for $1.99. Add SMU.
That's the one I would not want to add.
Worth, I love the history of SMU, and I know they've had some dark clouds as well. It doesn't. I would like to even see an old Southwest Conference. It doesn't move the needle in any way. It doesn't. Not Houston, not SMU. It doesn't move the needle. Houston, at least there's a talk. But SMU doesn't carry enough eyeballs or needle to move the revenue stream in the Dallas and Fort Worth area.
Yeah, I think SMU's doing a tremendous job right now. They're definitely on an upward trajectory. I think Sonny Dykes
they could beat most of the teams.
Yeah, they could probably be like 7-1 against the Big 12, but or 6-2 or whatever. But yeah, they are definitely a program on the rise. I think Sonny Dykes is in a perfect spot for him. And, doesn't have the amount of pressure that he would have at a Power 5, but still has obviously a very high standard right now there. But, yeah, it's a small school. There's not a lot of fan interest. It's just they don't have much of a market share in Dallas, so you don't really get the Dallas market with SMU. And I could go on and on. I mean, respect the hell out of the program for what they're doing right now, but they would not pull anything.
From Kenneth Maynor, a super chat for $4.99.
Thank
How
you.
about ECU from the AAC down recently? Historically solid, 29,000 enrollment, growing state of North Carolina, 50,000 seat stadium.
Yeah, I don't know how far. I mean, that would be great for West Virginia, wouldn't it? Have East Carolina just down the road compared to where else they have to go. I don't know. That's definitely the first time I've heard ECU, I think, brought up in all the teams, because we typically get most of the same teams, but that's the first time I've heard ECU. Don't know, honestly, enough about them, about like what kind of value there would be there, if any. But, I'm sure the Big 12 execs will comb through all the profiles and figure out who is the the cutest girl in the group, or the cutest girls to invite to the party, or cutest guys, whatever. And I don't know that ECU would be in that top group that would, that, because they're not going to add like 10, you wouldn't think. I mean, unless there is just like this complete, what do you call it? Complete coming together of the two conferences, where they all just blend in together. Outside of that, I think you're only seeing probably a handful of teams, and I don't think they would be in that handful.
All right, let's go rapid fire with these texts. 925, John in California. Pac said no. They might be back in 3 years when the media rights are up.
Exactly.
With that in mind, adding Houston to the Big 12 now would then make it more attractive to the Pac-12 at the expense of even those Texas schools. We've discussed that.
I think
That's not a bad idea.
I think you're really onto something right there. And I think that, as much as I say Houston, I know it's rapid fire, but I want to answer his question. As much as Houston would not be ideal for some of the other schools, if they're the ones that can help potentially put you over the top, because hopefully Bob Bowlesby will have somebody that's forward-thinking, then, I think Houston's right at the top of the forward-thinking part of this.
Your ship is sinking. Houston's the life raft. Either you die or you get in the life raft, right? Or you try to swim to shore and it's 100 miles away from the 4-2-3. Explain to me why the Big 12 needs to expand. Prior to 96, the Big 12 was very good as the Big 8. Oklahoma, Nebraska, Colorado, which they
don't have a single school left that's as big as those schools.
No, none of them. Not a single one of them.
Why.
Plus, you do need to have the ability to have a conference championship game to remain a part of the data points of being a part of the college football playoff. If you're a Power 5 team, you still get in if you're conference champion. But you kind of need that extra part of it as well.
I mean, he does have a point, though.
Big 8, man.
Yeah, he does. You do have a point. I definitely understand where you're coming from, but I think it's just you got to look to grow. Rather, I mean, they've done nothing. The Big 12's history is like very little growth and just moving backwards constantly. And I think they need to have some growth to show. And the right teams, Houston, UCF, BYU, Memphis or something like that. I mean, I think that'd be a damn interesting league. Like, I don't think it's going to compete with the Power 4, but I think that would be a really intriguing league when you mix them up with the Oklahoma States and the Baylors and TCUs and et cetera. So, I guess that would be my reasoning for why they need to expand.
From Birmingham, Rod, BYU, Cincinnati has to be the first 2 invites, then go after Boise, Houston, or UCF and USF. 864, there's only one answer. Big 12 finally needs to be proactive. Expanding aggressively is the only answer. From the 832 in Houston, couldn't the Big 12 do the same thing the SEC did, extend offers to schools for the 2025 season? And Texas and Oklahoma, if they leave early, then you bring teams in earlier than 25.
Huh. Yeah, I don't know how that would work, but that's interesting that you go ahead and make it known, and then maybe that leads to them leaving earlier. And you got to. One thing is Oklahoma and Texas love that they're the ones that are holding the ball in their court. As always, they're holding it in their court again because the Big 12's not sure what they can do at the moment.
Absolutely. From San Antonio, the 210. Add 8 more teams to the Big 12, North and South playoff for a conference title. Get in the 12-team playoffs. By doing that,
I will go back to this again and go into that text and many of those we've had. This is a prime opportunity to be forward thinking and to think outside of the box. And while it might not be the TV dollars right away or the markets or whatever, like you do the right calculated additions. And I think, again, you can have a really intriguing league that might not stack up blue blood wise, obviously, with the other 4, but all of the best of the rest basically is what you could put together. I think it could be super competitive in multiple sports. I think it could be exciting. It's definitely not going to be the level of the others, like I said, but damn, it wouldn't be, too far off.
Here's another one of these expansions. And the schools, if you could get them all, at least it gives you a chance. Again, not sure about all the eyeballs. A couple of them you do. You have West Virginia, Oklahoma State, Baylor, TCU, Iowa State. The Kansas schools are gone, but Iowa State stays. UCF, Boise, Brigham Young, and Cincinnati. Is that not a solid Power 5 conference?
Yeah.
Not replacing Oklahoma doesn't mean not still good. Texas on the field, as you know, hasn't been very good for a decade anyway.
Well, Texas will go win a bunch. I don't know what I know SEC has very competitive Olympic sports. That's one thing that Texas has been able to just own like by default. I mean, they're really good in the Olympics, like swimming and stuff. They're fantastic and have a great history there, so I'm not knocking that. But once Nebraska left and A&M left, they lost so much competition in some of those sports like track and field and swimming and diving and all that kind of stuff. So, it'll be interesting to see how they do in the SEC against all those programs and the more fringe things.
217, I've been talking academics, reminding people there's more to it than football.
Yes.
So serious question. Did Texas Tech, Oklahoma State, and Kansas State fans or actual university people really think they were going to get a call from the Pac-12 and an invite? Was that serious? Was that delusional? Or was that wishful thinking and hoping?
Well, I think it was all the things that you mentioned. I think, if you were, I think there's probably a little bit of everything. Yeah. And I understand that the Pac-12 has their academic requirements, and that's why I always a little bit, about Texas Tech, because they definitely don't fit that profile, all due respect. But, what's everyone's motivations? I mean, if the Pac-12 saw a cash cow out there to be had, that's why it brought up, a lot of people brought up the question of how far would they be willing to bend. I think we all stopped short of believing they would have a team like Baylor involved because of the religious part of it. We know that was probably never going to be a go. But, maybe you sacrifice some other things. But, yeah, the Pac-12 and the academic thing, that never made sense with Texas Tech to me. So, it's a lot of wishful thinking, a lot of delusion maybe in some cases, and just a lot of all that you said, but that's why it's also so much fun to talk about.
All right, we got to take a break. Mickey Spagnola will join us from DallasCowboys.com. Keep texting as much as we can. At times, I'll even go home in the evening and try to respond to a handful of you if I can. I can't always. The text line, the chat room.
Well, and we can get back to these at the end of the hour.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll no Paul's top 5 today, right? Armstrong with him out today. He's back tomorrow. This is Sikkim 365 Radio. I even forgot where I was supposed to be here. I know now. Pioneer Stew and Pipe. PioneerBoys.com online. The great family that has built unbelievable customer service and also the product that helps you build, large buildings. Metal, steel, pipe, and not just build buildings, but things around them as well. And Pioneer Steel and Pipe has been in business, and this is all you have to say, really, is 1943. They're alive and well and growing since 1943 with all of what's going on. And today, of course, has been a horrible day, what happened in Kabul. And then, of course, at times it's politics, or it's the economy, or it's all of the above, or it's COVID. And they continue to thrive because their product is amazing. And then, of course, their customer service is something that that really kind of makes you want to go back and not just buy once, but go back there over and for contractors or those who build or metal buildings and other structures as well. 1943, Pioneer Steel and Pipe, great customer service, big, huge material. They will deliver, unload it for you, and PioneerBoys.com since 1943.
Make this a summer event as rocking at Allen Samuels with the 2021 Ram 1500 Quad Cab Lone Star with total values up to $6,250 or 2.9% for 72 months plus $2,000 in bonus cash. The 1500 Crew Cab has the top safety rating and is ranked #1 in full-size pickup trucks. Allen Samuels, 201 West Loop 340.
Come by. Let's be friends.
See dealer for details. All offers have credit requirements.
Hey, this is Bryce Petty, former starting quarterback and 2-time Big 12 champion, and I know firsthand the importance of being in top shape both on and off the field. So listen up, men. If you're feeling beat down day in and day out and looking for that high-performance edge that separates the men from the boys, then look no further than the Petty Clinic Low T in Waco. Petty Clinic is a comprehensive men's healthcare clinic with an atmosphere catering to men. Board-certified Dr. Kent Petty has a special interest in offering the highest quality medical care to men of all ages. Some of the services offered include screening and treatment for low testosterone or thyroid, infertility, high blood pressure, diabetes, high cholesterol, sleep apnea, while offering comprehensive wellness exams and complete men's health lab panels. High performance men, remember, it's not just a Petty thing. This is Bryce Petty, encouraging you to reach out and Google search Petty Clinic Low T or go to pettycliniclowt.com and get your complimentary lab screening today.
From the first workout to the last practice, sports is an incredible and rewarding challenge. Hi, everyone. This is Dan Ingham with the First National Bank of Central Texas, and we're proud to support each athlete, every parent, and our educators. From families, small businesses, to the biggest industry, we're here to help. With remarkable products like mortgage lending, we've got banking ideas that fuel big dreams. The First National Bank of Central Texas. Familiar faces making local decisions.
Member FDIC, Equal Housing Lender.
Grant Dideker, under the umbrella of Texas Farm Bureau Insurance, McLennan County agent. When you contact people about insurance, and people are hit up with it all the time, what do you tell them? What do you say? I know you say you educate, but Texas Farm Bureau Insurance is obviously successful for a lot of different reasons. Right. And has hundreds of thousands.
Well, it's personal service. Okay. It's one-on-one service. Just yesterday, went to a client's house, met with the couple, went over all the coverages, and they said, wow, we've, never had this before. We've had this different insurance and that different insurance, but we've never had somebody actually come to the house and go over everything with us. And wow, we really appreciate that, especially this day and time where it's just a click of a button and you really don't know who you're dealing with. It's a different person you call every time you call that 800 number. You don't know who your agent is. Now they have a face with the name, and it's more personal service.
Grant Dideker, Texas Farm Bureau Insurance, McLennan County agent. If someone wants to contact you, just straight on your cell phone?
Yep, 254-265-0442.
Grant Dideker, Texas Farm Bureau Insurance, a McLennan County agent.
At
At Marco's Pizza, get craveable pizza made the Italian way with dough made from scratch, an original sauce recipe, 3 fresh signature cheeses, and premium toppings you love, served hot and safe. Right now, you can get unlimited medium one-topping pizzas for just $6.99 each. Why stop at just one? Order with your app or at marcos.com for curbside, carryout, or delivery today. Marco's, pizza lovers get it.
Welcome back to Sikkim 365 Radio.
And Prescott on the keeper, walks in, touchdown, Dallas.
It's time for our weekly segment with Mickey Spagnola of DallasCowboys.com. Brought to you by the First National Bank of Central Texas, with 5 locations to serve you.
Joined by Mickey Spagnola, DallasCowboys.com. 5:35 on 365 Sports and Sikkim 365 Radio. Back in the behind the scenes, Hayden, Jack, Armstrong, Paul back with us tomorrow. Craig Smoak, David Smoak, joined by Mickey Spagnola. All right, Mickey, the one game left. What are your thoughts about the way that the preseason schedule, and I know they had the early game, but there's now a buffer between the last preseason game, which used to be a mad rush to get cuts, pick other people up, and the next thing you know, you're playing a game. Isn't this probably the most, you look back and go, why weren't they always doing this in the first place?
That's a very good point. You know, you would like make your cuts on, and it never failed, like the day after Labor Day, and then you would start the season, 5 days later?
Yep.
Yeah, this makes so much more sense. Now, the Cowboys got a little short-sheeted here on this deal, since they had to play the final preseason game on a Sunday and then have to open the season on a Thursday. Instead of getting 2 weeks, they get like 10 days. So, yeah, they kind of got short-sheeted here. Tampa Bay, though, has to play Saturday, their final preseason game, and it is on the road, so they have to travel. But you would have think they would have given those teams that have to play the Thursday night opener a little bit of a break and move up that last preseason game.
Mickey, what's the status with COVID throughout the team right now?
Oh, boy. How long you got?
We got 23 minutes.
Yeah. See, the problem is you know, they don't come quite clean with close contact and testing positive if you're vaccinated, if you're not vaccinated, because then the rules change. So, you know, they've got the 5 guys they're still in there. And again, you know, you got to come up with 2 negative tests before you can get out of any of the protocols. It's not just, I got to wait 5 days or I got to wait 10 days. If you test positive, it's a matter of not having symptoms and having 2 negative tests 24 hours apart. So, you know, we spoke with Dan Quinn today, and he said that he's feeling better, but he didn't want to get into just if he's had any negative tests yet or not. And then the last 2 guys will be behind everybody else, DeMonte KZ and Connor Williams, because they just got put on the other day while the other ones went on earlier. So, you know, obviously, I would guess none of them will be ready for the last preseason game, and you know, most of them wouldn't have played in. Well, I take that back. Malik Hooker probably would have played because he's got to still convince them that he belongs on this 53-man roster to start the season. But I think there's a good chance that, you know, the first day, you know, if we had a regular week getting ready for a Sunday game, so you go Monday through Sunday, that first day, that Monday, will be next Friday. So they've got a little bit of a span to be able to get some of these guys back. And again, as I said, a lot of it has to do, were you vaccinated or were you not vaccinated?
Mickey Spagnola with us, DallasCowboys.com. I saw a note, and I don't know exactly who the reporter was, but it was a reputable guy that mentioned the NFL. What do you think the percentages are now? Like 90-something% across, like 92 or 3%? Would that be kind of a good number? Your thoughts?
Yeah, I think so, David. I think it's getting closer and closer. And and the Cowboys pointed out when the deal happened Saturday, before that preseason game against Houston with Dan Quinn and Carlos Watkins that the team was 93% vaccinated. That's 93% out of 85, so 7% out of 85. That's only a handful. And my understanding, a couple of the guys that ended up, having to get on COVID reserve were either waiting for their second shot or had their second shot but weren't 2 weeks removed from it. So kind of Johnny-come-latelys, right? So maybe by time the season starts, this team could be really, really close to 100% vaccinated. The staff is 100% vaccinated. And as we know, that doesn't preclude you still testing positive with the new variant out there spreading around. But you have a better chance if everybody in the building is vaccinated. And so there's nobody that's not vaccinated going to spread it around to somebody that is vaccinated. They went virtually these last couple days for meetings. They kind of went back to how they were doing it last year. And to give you an example, today was our day to interview the Cowboys coordinators, and we went back to WebEx interviews with all three of the guys. So they're taking all the precautions they can moving forward and try to get this thing behind them.
Mickey, obviously they feel really good about Zeke and also Tony Pollard, but how much does Rico Dowdle's injury mess with the depth, or what kind of impact, if at all, does it have?
Yeah, I think it has a significant impact because not only was he going to make the team as the third running back, but he also was a valuable special teams player. And so that kind of hurts. And the two guys behind him, Hardy and Knox, they're rookie free agents. I mean, the one guy's from Tiffin. You know where Tiffin is?
No.
Yeah, well, good, because I don't either. Although I think LSU opened the season one year against, or they had a game against Tiffin. I don't know if it was a season opener. But yeah, so I don't know that they have a third guy that they'll say, well, that guy's worth keeping on the 53-man roster. And so it kind of has a snowball effect. So if you only keep two running backs, would you keep a fullback? Well, they lost the fullback who would have been on the team, Shewu Olaluna. I'll get it out. And so that causes a problem. And the only other fullback on the team right now is Nick Walston, an undrafted rookie from Argyle, by the way, Argyle High School. So, yeah, so do you keep a fullback or do you keep an extra tight end? They might have to do that anyway because the third tight end, Sean McEwen, is out with a high ankle sprain, and, you're not sure when that guy's going to get back. So now you only got two tight ends. So, yeah, it kind of creates a conundrum for them at the running back tight end position.
Mickey, they play on the road against Tampa Bay, and then, of course, they go to San Diego. That's going East Coast all the way back to the West Coast. Back-to-back games on the road to start the year. Obviously, Justin Herbert has been very impressive early on in his career. What kind of a dicey start? Obviously, if you win one of them or both, what a hell of a start. But how dicey is that?
Yeah, I absolutely agree, especially since you're hoping you revitalize the defense that was just gosh awful last year. And now you got to go up against those two offenses, those two quarterbacks. I guess we'll get a good idea if they at least made advances with a defense that, really sold them out last year. I mean, they finished 6-10. They were only one game off the pace in the NFC East, which is nothing to write home about. But had that defense been a little bit better last year, they might have finished 8-8 and won the division, even though Dak Prescott wasn't in there. Even though Tyron Smith and La'el Collins played all of two games together, combined last year, and both of them were Tyron Smith. And then lose Zach Martin. I mean, the injuries on the offense really crippled this team. Then you lost Andy Dalton. You had to start two guys that had never started games before, and they came that close. But had the defense had been average or just not very good, they might have gotten to 8-8, but they were poor. They were just poor. So again, I guess we'll find out right away where that defense is, and if Dan Quinn has made a significant difference in how they played. Because sure, they've added some talent, some veterans, Micah Parsons, but the majority of the guys were here last year, and I just saw no excuse for them to play that bad as they did.
Mickey, cut-down day is coming early next week when rosters get all the way down to 53. With this final preseason game, is there anybody that's on that bubble that could make the team potentially with a good performance this week?
I think there's some young guys make the team. Would they keep 3 quarterbacks or would they keep just 2 and just keep the one that's going to be the backup, either Cooper Rush or Garrett Gilbert? I think that's the first one to look at. I think there's some defensive backs. Maybe, it's how many can you keep? You've got some young guys that, Nashawn Wright, who showed that he's got something. How many cornerbacks can you keep? Can you keep 6? And then that comes down to how many safeties are you going to keep? Can you keep Malik Hooker, who's not going to play Sunday, has only played a few snaps in the 3rd preseason game, and he's a veteran. We know his history, but can he help? I think there's a bunch of guys that are wide receivers. It looks like they would keep 5, and it would be the same 5 from last year. But could your draft choice, Simi Fehoko, make the team and knock one of those last 2 guys off, or would they keep 6 wide receivers? So, I think that there's some things that could happen in that last preseason game that, some guys can emerge. Mike McCarthy was talking about it the other day about, somebody asked him, have you ever had somebody just jump out in that last preseason game and kind of force you to, keep them on the 53? And he mentioned about 3 or 4 guys that came to mind. So it's possible, but it's going to be tight with the number of veterans they still have on this team.
Mickey, I have mentioned that I sent to Craig and Paul, and we had a couple of comments. Craig did a note about it. The drone shot from a mile or so outside of the Star all the way through and out of cars and trees and windows. It looked like what they could do off of like send kind of a missile into somebody's living room if they wanted to. Probably not the best day for me to be mentioning that, but you know what I mean. And Craig said it took 15 takes. Do you know if they lost any drones along the way during that time?
From what I've read and heard, no, and it was rather amazing. So 15 times they tried it, and my understanding was the only attempt that came through perfectly was the 15th one. So it took them that many times. See, when I first saw it, David, Craig, I thought they spliced it together. I said, there's no way they filmed 3 minutes and 20 seconds perfectly, that they had to splice it together, right? Because that thing had to crash into things. But no, my understanding is the 15th take, they flew it through. And I said, I want to meet that pilot, because that guy did one heck of a job to fly that thing through everything. And there was no, my understanding also, there was no, kind of taking license with video and kind of, making something happen that really didn't happen. The thing went through the windows of the truck, went through the door of the Ford Center, and did go through those in the weight room when it went through the different structures that it went through. So, and then evidently when it finally went through the weight room and got outside, the wind had kicked up, and now it was hard to drive the thing over the practice field. So, rather amazing. They should win an Emmy Award for cinematography or something.
I think they might, man. I really do think they might. Thank you, Mickey. Appreciate your time. Thanks for being patient with our timing today. Appreciate it.
Good to be with you guys. Talk to you next week.
Mickey Spagnola, DallasCowboys.com. Armstrong, one more break here. Let's take a break, come back. We'll try to read a couple of more of your text and or your chat room. I want to say something. Paul Catalina has been not here today. He's been working behind the scenes really for the last several days to make sure we have everything of where we need it for our high school games tomorrow, from things that are simple as where you can find us on links, to commercials, to segments, to billboards, to sponsors, to equipment, to all of that. And he's not here today, but he is busting it probably harder now than he would if he was just here sitting with us doing the show. Back in a moment, Sikkim 365 Radio. I don't know if you smoke cigars or not. I do on occasion, and one of my favorite cigars is the Rocky Patel Torpedo Edge Light. It's also one of my favorite is La Fontana, a Torpedo Edge, which means it's just shaped like a torpedo at the end of the cigar that you put in your mouth. And Don Humidor and Coffee Beans has a 48-foot walk-in humidor with all of the great names of brands of cigars worldwide, rated high, everywhere, not just in the country, but as I said, the world. Cohiba, Padron, Macanudo, Romeo and Julieta. I mentioned Rocky Patel, Artur Fuente. Yeah, they have them all, every one of them. And Carol, Ashley, and Cheyenne, inside Don Humidor and Coffee Beans, are cigar aficionados. So they have the 48-foot walk-in humidor with boxes upon boxes of cigars, all of the great brands. And then they have coffee beans fresh that are grounded right there in front of you if that's what you want as well. One of their favorite, apparently, flavors, aroma is Cowboy. And they have CBD products. And there's one that is, it's been helpful to me. You toss and turn, especially like in a week like this week when there's so much going on. You have a little bit of a nibble of a gummy, like a CBD, a Vita Dreams is what it's called. Comes in a bottle about this big. And it might allow you to just kind of relax a little bit. And, you fall asleep a little bit faster. And think about if you have a lot on your mind and you toss and turn for 30 minutes, an hour, sometimes throughout the night, and you never get that sleep back, Vita Dreams can help you save a little bit of time, fall asleep a little bit faster, and it's not like you're drugged. It just allows you to calm down. It's CBD, it's ground coffee beans, and the great 48-foot walk-in humidor at Don Humidor, the Town West Shopping Center, Valley Mills in Waco.
Escape the mundane with the responsive power and exhilarating agility of a new Cadillac from Richard Carr Cadillac. Smile behind the wheel again in the supercharged sophistication of a CT4 or CT5 sedan, or the sporty and spacious XT4, XT5, or XT6 lineup of SUVs. Starting at only $33,395, the Cadillac of your dreams is waiting now at an affordable price at Richard Carr. Test drive from the expansive selection at Richard Carr Cadillac, or let us bring a test drive to you. Go to richardcarcadillac.com to schedule a test drive today.
With so many companies and policies out there, it gets so confusing shopping for insurance, and I never know if I'm getting the policy that's right for me. Luckily, I met the team at the Niche Group Insurance Agency. With the Niche Group, you can go to one company and get access to coverage options from many insurance carriers, and you get to speak to a real person about your specific coverage needs. With the Niche Group, I know I'm getting the right coverage at the right price. If you need insurance, talk to the experts at the Niche Group at 1-800-258-8302.
One size fits all. That may be all right for an adjustable belt or cheap sunglasses, but when it comes to your financial needs, no one wants a one-size-fits-all strategy. Ben Erlinson, your Edward Jones financial advisor, knows that his most important goals are yours. That's why he takes the time to understand your needs, knowing you. That's how Edward Jones makes sense of investing. Ben Erlinson, 100 North 6th Street in Waco, 254-759-8533. Edward Jones, member SIPC.
Riverbend Liquor and Wine, Lakeshore Drive at North 19th Street in Waco, is a hidden gem. They've got a great selection of spirits, wine, and the most extensive selection of craft beer in Waco in their gorgeous walk-in fridge. And they have an amazing array of high-end bourbons like Pinhook, Weller, Buffalo Trace, Brush Creek, Hotel, Garrison Brothers, Thomas S. Moore, Hooten Young, and Bardstown. Great customer service and a convenient and speedy drive-through window. Riverbend Liquor and Wine. Find out more on Facebook and Instagram.
Waco's newest gym, Halo Athletic Center, 5725 Bagby Avenue, right behind Region 12 and across the highway from the Central Texas Marketplace, where motivation, inspiration, and hard work are the driven force. State-of-the-art equipment, indoor and outdoor track, locker room, showers, after daylight yoga, bar classes, bod pod body composition analysis, and registered dietitians, massage therapists, and estheticians, all under one roof where we rise above. Come join the Halo Athletic Center and be part of the change, your change.
Parenting is full of surprises.
You never know what to expect.
So after our son was born, I called my Texas Farm Bureau insurance agent to set up a life insurance policy in case something happened to me.
Sawyer is now 2.
And we'll soon have a sister. There's no one else I would trust with protecting my family.
Stop by and see our agents at one of our 3 McLennan County locations.
Coverage and discounts are subject to qualifications and policy terms and may vary by situation.
I hate my job, but I don't mind getting up in the morning. I dread each day, but I can't wait to get out of bed. You ask me why, and what I'll say to you is true. Well, you can get breakfast tacos at Rudy's Barbecue. Scrambled eggs and brisket, they ain't fooling around. Salsa drap, son, they're the best in town. Barbecue for breakfast, yes, it's true. Put a smile on your morning at Rudy's Barbecue. Next in line.
Welcome back to Sikkim 365 Radio. Have you subscribed to our YouTube channel? Search 365 Sports on YouTube.
All right, we will wrap it up with a few notes from you. We'll also, again, remind you, if you did not hear at the start, most of you have, Pac-12 had a statement today on expansion. With all the minutia and all the words and all the fancy stuff, they're not going to expand. They mentioned that at least at this particular time. 715, Smokey and Craig. Texas and Oklahoma have stars in their eyes, but so did Penn State and Nebraska when they joined the Big Ten, and they haven't had that much success to show for it.
Penn State? I think Penn State's had some pretty good success.
And Nebraska early on was in a couple of the games, but no, they've been irrelevant for 7 to 10 years. We know that. But yeah. Penn State's held their own. Last year, they did fall backwards quite a bit. Some of the big boy schools you would think would have been better, Michigan, Penn State, others, they fell apart.
Yeah, but to your overall point, like I agree with you that, the grass always does look greener on the other side, and there might be a rude welcoming for Oklahoma and Texas, but, those two programs in particular, they're going to have all the money to stay in the mix, and all of the ties now with the SEC are only going to benefit them more in recruiting, and they're the only 2 Big 12 schools that are regularly in the top 10 to top 15 in the recruiting rankings every year. So I think they're going to be okay, but I have said plenty of times that, somebody's got to go down in this scenario. Somebody's not going to be winning quite as many games, and maybe it's Oklahoma and Texas. And if you say that right now, then the response that you typically get is, yeah, but all the money. But for me, if I'm a fan, I don't care about all that money because, yeah, I'm seeing it, the brand new scoreboard or the, new seats or whatever you use to add on. But ultimately, the reason why I'm there is not for, like, the beer truck driving down the Broadway, before pregames. I'm there to see my team win games. So I do think something's going to have to give, and it'll be interesting if Oklahoma or Texas, do fall back and all of a sudden, although for Texas it's kind of been the case, but if 4 or 5 losses is all of a sudden the norm, are we still going to be hearing, but yeah, all that money from the fans, or are we going to be hearing like, yeah, all that money is great, but damn, I want to win some football games too,
Yeah, there was a stretch, early on, Penn State was a part of the Big Ten, and in 1994, they had that team that Nebraska won the national title. Penn State that year was really, really good, and then they went through a stretch where they weren't a part of it, but then won 3 titles back in, I think it was 05, 08, and then they won about 5 years ago. But, yeah, last year wasn't good. But they've been a part of it for quite some time, and Penn State's not a problem. They're going to compete. They got the big facilities, the money, the players, and they got Coach Franklin, who I think is really good at what he does.
And I know we got others to get to, but, for Nebraska, though, I would wonder from their fans, like, are you satisfied with Big Ten status? Well, I know you're not, but, like, in in general, I don't really know that we've heard from many of. Are you satisfied? It was just, hey, we're in the Big Ten, so who cares? And we got all this money for all this other stuff. Or do you wish it was still the late 90s and you were competing every year for a national championship? I think most fans would probably prefer the late 90s and less money, but I don't know.
Yeah, from Michael Deich, $5 super chat.
Wow, thank you.
Bob Stoops said this week that years ago, Oklahoma almost went to the Pac-12 along with Oklahoma State. Remember those years? Stoops also said this time Oklahoma State wasn't wanted in the SEC. Oklahoma would be stupid not to go.
Yeah, I don't think they could make that decision based on what Oklahoma State was able to do. I mean, that's the decision you have to make for yourself. You can't always, bring friends with you. And they already had their friend in their rival Texas. But yeah, Oklahoma State, I bet they were not happy with the news today. I think they were one of those schools that was probably expecting for some Pac-12 certification to make the future a little bit clearer, but that's not in the cards for right now. Now.
And again, we can't get to everybody. We're out of time. No Paul's Top 5 today. He'll be back tomorrow. Man, thank you. Thank you all who watch and listen on Sikkim 365 Radio. Next week, the first week of the college football season for Baylor with Dave Aranda and company. This week, of course, Nebraska, Illinois, and a handful of games.
We got to talk about some of the games this weekend, too,
tomorrow. We will. And then our high school football coverage starts tomorrow. Craig, Paul, and I will be live from Round Rock, Texas, just outside of Austin. And we'll broadcast from the stadium there into high school football, but we continue to what we do here with you, with guests and more.
Yeah, the response today has been amazing.
Yeah,
it's been amazing, and can't thank everybody out there enough for your participation. Even if you're not talking to us and you're just talking to other people in the chat room, for those of you who super chatted us and donated $1 or $5 or whatever, oh my gosh, I never have expected that, and certainly we all behind the scenes and in front of the camera appreciate that as well. It's just awesome to hear from so many folks across the country.
130 away from 10,000 subscribers of YouTube channel 365 Sports. For Hayden Bumpus, for Armstrong Sims and Jack McKenzie, I'm David Smoak for Craig Smoak. Paul back tomorrow. Our incredible sponsors that allow this to happen, and you, of course, is why they're a part of the show as well. Good night, Sikkim 365 Radio.
Ideal MRI is a small family business right here in Central Texas. We're open to support you while lowering the cost of healthcare bills. When you need an MRI, ask your doctor for an Ideal MRI. Visit us at idealmri.com or call us at 833-IDEAL-MRI.
Stepping into the boots of a U.S. Army officer can add confidence and leadership skills to your son or daughter's career path. See all the things they can achieve in our boots at GoArmy.com. U.S. Army Waco Recruiting Company, 254-598-8131 or 254-776-1543.
After my first car accident, I feared the biggest damage would be to my wallet. I expected a mountain of bills and a long, drawn-out process. But my Texas Farm Bureau insurance agent was there when I needed her and helped me get back on my feet and in my car in no time. Instead of a hassle, I got reassurance and a quick recovery.
Stop by and see our agents at one of our 3 McLennan County locations.
Coverage and discounts are subject to qualifications and policy terms and may vary by situation.